Hey everyone, tonight, you're being dropped into the middle of the most bone-cracking, nose-freezing, bedbug-infested nightmare Europe ever called winter. Forget puffer jackets and smart thermostats. You're a medieval peasant now. And winter isn't a season, it's a siege. Your roof leaks, your bed's full of lice, and your greatest hope of warmth is a half-rotten goat pressed against your spine. Sounds cozy, right? Well, too bad, because the cold is coming. And this isn't about comfort, it's about survival. So grab your last turnip, whisper a prayer to Saint Please Dear God Don't Let Me Die, and let's find out exactly what it took to make it through a single night, in the freezing, flea-ridden heart of the Middle Ages, before we huddle into this frosty nightmare together. If you're still breathing, and not already frozen solid like last winter's soup, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel and comment below what time it is where you're listening from. Because somewhere out there, another sleepless soul is probably also wrapped in too many blankets and wondering how people once survived with nothing but hay, goat breath, and sheer stubbornness. Now, pull your lice-ridden cloak tight, squeeze in beside the family pig, and get ready, because Chapter 1 is about to begin, and so is the cold. You wake up to the sound of your breath, not because it's loud, because you can see it, a little puff of white fog in front of your face. You exhale again. Same thing. Congratulations, you're still alive. And it's winter. Again. You don't own a calendar, but your bones do. They've been warning you for weeks. The ache started in your fingers, then your back. Then that one toe you nearly lost last year when your foot accidentally froze to the mud floor while you slept. You lie still, wrapped in a wool blanket that smells like smoke, sour milk, and, if you had to guess, sadness. You shift slightly, trying not to wake the goat curled up next to your feet. It's not your pet, it's your heater. You can't feel your nose, that's normal. The fire? A faint orange glow barely visible from across the hut. It's clinging to life like you are, weakly, pitifully, but with just enough spite to keep going another hour. Your home is a one-room marvel of sticks, dung, and prayer. Technically, it's a wattle and daub house. In practice, it's a damp cube of despair. The walls are made of woven twigs smeared with mud, animal hair, and whatever else you found sticky enough to plug a draft. Somewhere near the ceiling, a squirrel is scratching, hopefully outside the roof this time. And then you hear it, that sound, the cold wind slipping through the cracks like a thief. It whistles through the thatch above your head and curls across the floor like a ghost with unfinished business. You tug the blanket tighter and squeeze yourself between your little brother and the goat. He's a furnace. The goat smells better. Outside, it's probably snowing. You don't dare check. You tried plugging the holes in the wall last week with straw and leftover rags, but the wind always finds a way. It doesn't knock. It doesn't ask. It invites itself inside like a drunk uncle who lost his shoes and wants to borrow your last bowl of soup. This isn't just a season, this is war. You think back to summer, remember summer? The warm sun, the buzzing flies, the mild stench of manure ripening in the fields like a wine no one wants. Back then, you had dreams. Maybe you'd fix the roof. Maybe patch the hole by the hearth. Maybe finally kill that family of rats nesting behind the bed. You did none of that, because you were busy harvesting. Because winter comes like a tax collector, sooner than you want and always wanting more than you've got. So now you lie here, in a hay-stuffed sack masquerading as a mattress, wearing everything you own. Let's take inventory. One itchy linen shirt, originally white, now somewhere between beige and battlefield. One wool tunic with a questionable stain from the goose incident. Wool leggings sagging like a sad accordion. A cloak that was once your uncle's, now more whole than fabric. Two mismatched socks, one of which might actually be a sleeve and wrapped around your head. A scarf that used to be part of a curtain. You smell like smoke and salt pork. Your hair feels damp. You're not sure if it's from the humidity or your own breath rebounding off the scarf. This is night 1 of winter. And if you're lucky, you'll do this exact routine another 119 times. Your stomach growls. Loudly, it echoes inside the hut like a church bell in a crypt. There's food, sort of. In the corner sits a pot. Inside is a stew made of turnips, barley, old onion skins, and whatever bones you boiled for too long yesterday. It's cold now, solid almost. You'll warm it later if there's still firewood. That's the real challenge. In your world, fire is everything. Warmth, cooking, light, pest control, emotional support. If it dies, you die. It's that simple. Your older sister's job tonight is to stoke the fire. She's curled up beside it, half asleep, muttering something about saints and frostbite. The last time she let the flames die, it took 3 people, a flint, and 40 minutes of swearing to get it going again. The youngest child cried. The middle one peed himself. You lost 2 eyebrows. You don't talk about that night anymore. A cough rattles from the far end of the hut. Grandma. She hasn't said much since the frostbite took her pinky toe. She just sits in her corner, wrapped in 3 cloaks, mumbling prayers under her breath. You wish you could pray like she does. But it's hard to feel spiritual when your lips are turning blue. Still, you murmur a few words. Please let the fire live. Please let the goat stay. Please let me keep all 10 fingers. Another gust of wind slaps the wall. The cow snorts in protest. The roof creaks. You're reminded that your house is held together by mud, straw, and your father's stubbornness, and probably a rat. It's quiet now. Too quiet. Your baby cousin starts crying. Everyone groans. She's cold, hungry, tired. Welcome to the club, you think. Your mother shifts under the pile of cloaks and hay, breastfeeding in the dark. The baby settles. You count your blessings. You're not on the outer edge of the bed pile tonight. That's where people wake up with their breath frozen to the wall. You're near the middle, between the kid with the lice and the goat that farts when it's nervous. Luxury. You try to sleep. You roll to your side. The hay pokes your ribs. You roll again. You land in something squishy. You hope it's mud. Eventually, you drift off. And in your dream, you're somewhere warm. There's a fire, a real one. It has a chimney. There's bread, a whole loaf. No rats, no fleas. You're wearing something called fleece. It's soft. It doesn't itch. You don't know what it is, but you love it. You wake up smiling, and then the roof leaks directly into your ear. Welcome to winter in medieval Europe. You're not even halfway through the first night, and already the draft has learned your name. The sun isn't up, but you are. Not by choice. Your bed, a generous term for a flattened sack of hay sprinkled with straw and ancient crumbs, started leaking cold around midnight. You tried to ignore it, pulled the cloak tighter, shifted away from the goat, whispered a prayer to Saint Don't Let My Kidneys Freeze. But by now your backside has gone numb and your nose is so cold it might qualify as medieval pottery. So you sit up, slowly, crackling like an old bread crust, and there it is, your home. The full horror revealed in the pre-dawn grey. It is technically a structure. It has walls, a roof, 4 corners, all made from things you wouldn't normally put together unless you were under extreme duress, which you are. The experts call it wattle and daub. You call it the thing that barely didn't collapse last Thursday. The walls are woven twigs packed with a delicate spread of local ingredients: mud, straw, cow dung, horse dung, pig dung, possibly uncle dung, and a layer of desperation. It's all held together by the miracle of hope and humidity. Each wall breathes slightly, which is a polite way of saying the wind comes in sideways. You've stuffed rags into the cracks, bits of cloth, moss. The baby's old wool diaper, cleanish. But it's never enough. The cold finds you anyway. It always does. Look to the ceiling. That thatch roof? Romantic, sure, if you're a bird. In practice, it leaks in 4 places and harbors an entire squirrel civilization. Rain drips onto your stew pot. Snow drifts through gaps, like it's been personally invited. Once, during a windstorm, the entire back section peeled off like a bad haircut. You patched it with reeds, old shirts, and a flattened basket. It now looks like a drunk beaver's art project. You don't have tiles, or bricks, or shingles. What you do have is a sharp awareness that gravity and weather are your worst roommates. The door, 1 single plank of wood. Not a door frame, just a plank. Nailed into the wall with something that may or may not be your father's last shoe buckle. It creaks open if you look at it wrong. It also lets in a family of rats, an owl last month, and wind so aggressive it should be paying rent. There's no doorknob. You push it open with your shoulder and brace it closed with a stick wedged between the floor and a chicken coop. Security, medieval edition. The window? No. Okay, fine. There's 1 hole in the wall, covered with oiled animal hide that's cracked, warped, and smells like jerky left under a saddle. It doesn't open. It doesn't close. It flaps like a sad flag of surrender when the wind kicks up. Light comes through in the morning. So does snow. Occasionally a spider. Last week a robin tried to nest in it. You let her. At least she brought warmth. Now look down. Your floor. Dirt. Not unfinished hardwood. Not natural stone. Just earth. Same as outside. Slightly flatter. Slightly muddier. With bonus hay, droppings, and last night's stew splash. It floods when it rains. Freezes when it snows. Occasionally burps. Yes, your floor burps. There's some kind of swamp gas situation happening underneath the composting rushes. Every few days it lets out a wet glorp that smells like roasted despair. You tried laying down dry straw, but the pigs ate it. Now you just hope for frost. It is easier to sleep on solid ground than on a living ecosystem. You once dreamed of having a raised wooden floor. You saw one at the manor house during a harvest visit. The wood was smooth, clean, mostly rat-free. You asked how much it cost. The answer was more than your family earns in 5 winters. So you came home and lovingly slapped more dung onto the walls, muttering to yourself, "Luxury is a lie." In the corner near the hearth sits your kitchen. It's a pile of stones, 3 blackened pots, and a long stick your mother calls the spoon. You don't ask what else it's used for. You just stir, eat, and give thanks. Above it is a hole in the roof. That's the chimney, such as it is. Smoke usually drifts through it. Sometimes it drifts sideways into your face. Once it went straight back down and smoked out your sleeping uncle. He woke up wheezing and accused the saints of trying to suffocate him. You slept great that night, though. Warmest you'd been in weeks. Now let's talk wildlife. You don't have pets. You have cohabitants. The goat who thinks the stew pot is a toilet. 3 chickens who lay eggs wherever you least expect. A pig named Margaret who once ate a sock and hasn't looked sorry since. A cat, sort of. It comes and goes, eats mice, leaves fleas. And of course the invisible thousands. Lice, fleas, mites, beetles. And something in the straw that wiggles when you touch it. They're not guests. They're residents. You've named some of them. The roof drips again. You move the pot. The fire sputters. You feed it straw. The wall lets in a breeze that smells like swamp and manure soup. You sigh. Then your mother hands you a wooden bowl. Inside is porridge, watery grey and suspiciously lumpy. You eat it without question, because in this house, your lovely, leaky, dung-decorated shack, food is heat and heat is survival. Your friend once joked that peasants like you don't live in homes. You live in explanations. This is a house, you say, but it's made of mud. Yes, but it keeps most of the weather out. It smells like a barn. That's because it is one. And the barn smells like you too. There's a rat in your bed. Yes, but he's warm and you smile just a little, because it's not much, but it's yours. And somehow in this mess of twigs, turds, and tragedy, you're still here, still breathing, still beating the cold. For now. Let's start with your feet. You can't feel them. And not in the, "oh, my slippers are cozy" kind of way. It's the, "did I leave them in the yard overnight" kind of way. You wriggle your toes or try to, they don't respond. One of them crunches a little. You hope it's the straw shifting and not your bones surrendering. Because here's a cruel truth of medieval life. Your greatest enemy is under you. No, not the rats, not the pig who occasionally snores louder than Uncle Reginald, and not even your little brother who kicks in his sleep like he is running from the devil. No, your enemy is the floor. It's not just dirt, it's weaponized cold. In summer it was just annoying, dusty, dry, occasionally muddy. You could handle it. But in winter it becomes a silent killer, a creeping, bone-deep menace that rises up in the night like a ghost and whispers, "How about we turn your spine into a popsicle?" There's no insulation, no wooden slats, no straw mat that lasts more than a week, just dirt. Maybe a few half-rotted rushes if someone swept last month. And under that, more dirt. And under that, the unfeeling, frozen earth slowly exhaling into your lungs. You are effectively sleeping in a refrigerator drawer, but without the vegetables. Your solution? Layers. Not fancy foam pads or heated blankets, just straw. Piles of it. Maybe some old cloaks. If you're lucky, a threadbare sheep pelt someone gave your father as payment for 3 turnips and a prayer. You pile it all onto the ground like a sad lasagna. But no matter how thick it is, the cold finds its way in. Always. By midnight, the straw has flattened. By morning, it's damp. By the next day it smells like wet feet and bad decisions. Some folks try rushes instead, long reed-like plants. They scatter them over the dirt and pretend it's flooring. At first it's soft, even smells nice, especially if someone throws in dried lavender or mint. But then time passes, the mint fades, the moisture rises, the rushes rot, and the floor becomes a compost bin with ambitions. At some point your home becomes layered with so much dead plant matter, you could probably sprout potatoes just by sneezing too hard. You've stopped calling it a floor. You call it the lower level. It crunches when you walk. It squishes when it rains. And sometimes you swear it moves. You don't investigate. In the center of this soggy wasteland sits your bed, not a frame, not a mattress, a bag. Stuffed with hay, bits of cloth, old shirts, and what you suspect used to be a curtain. At first you thought it was clever, soft, kind of warm. But hay breaks down. It settles. It betrays you. By now, it's just a sack of sadness that smells like goat. You toss. You turn. You get poked in the ribs by a wheat stalk. One night you find a spider in your armpit. Another time you wake up with half a beetle embedded in your neck. You don't ask questions anymore. You just accept it. You tried replacing the hay once, went out to the field, gathered a fresh bundle, brought it in with pride. 3 hours later, it was soggy. Your little brother sneezed hay dust into your stew. The goat tried to eat it. You gave up. Some people, the wealthy, have wooden platforms, beds raised up off the floor with real mattresses, feathers even. You met a boy once from a manor house who described his bed like it was a religious experience. "It's like floating," he said. You blinked at him. "Do your toes not touch frozen cabbage stems when you stretch out at night?" He looked confused. You never spoke again. Back in your own hut, the cold creeps upward. From your feet, into your knees, up your spine, into the back of your skull, where it settles like a rude houseguest who refuses to leave. You try shifting onto your side. The straw rustles. You try curling into a ball. Something under your hip squelches. You don't check what it is. You're not looking for comfort. You're looking for survival posture. You've developed techniques. The fetal clamp. Knees to chest, arms folded, neck hunched like a boiled shrimp. The sibling sandwich. You in the middle, squashed between two smaller bodies, praying no one has night gas. The livestock wedge. One goat, one cousin, and a leg stretched toward the hearth like a solar panel. None of them are glamorous. All of them are freezing. Your mother says, keep your feet covered. If your feet go, the rest follows. Wise words from a woman who hasn't felt her feet since the solstice. Your father adds, sleep with a stone. He means it. You take a flat rock, heat it in the hearth, wrap it in cloth, slip it under your bed straw. For 20 minutes it's bliss. After that it's either cold or missing. Sometimes the pig steals it. Sometimes it catches fire. Either way, your toes still go numb by dawn. The worst part? Waking up. That moment when your eyes open and you realize your entire body has become one giant ice cube tray. Your breath fogs. Your blanket is damp. The straw has turned against you. You roll out of bed and your feet hit the dirt with a sound somewhere between a splash and a crunch. It's not just a flaw. It's a punishment. And yet you stand up, you stretch, you walk barefoot over the freezing mess you call home. You stir the fire, you feed the goat, you steal the warm spot your little brother left behind. Because somehow, miraculously, you made it through another night. The floor tried to take you, but not today. You've never seen a chimney. You've heard of them, fancy things. Stone towers that carry smoke up and out of the house. A way to breathe warm air without coughing up half your spleen. But for you, smoke is just part of the air. You don't think of it as something that leaves the room. It lives in it. Every breath in your home smells like a campfire and regret. It's morning and you're crouched by the hearth. A shallow pit ringed with half-burned logs and disappointment. You're trying to coax last night's coals back to life. You blow on them gently. They wheeze back. The fire isn't happy. Neither are you. Your sister drops a few sticks onto the pile. You strike flint against steel. Sparks jump. One catches. And there it is. Smoke. A thick ribbon of grey rises from the logs and swirls across the room like it owns the place. You cough. It's a wet, chesty sound. Familiar. Welcome to medieval heating. There's no chimney here, just a few holes in the roof and the occasional crack in the wall. The smoke doesn't vent, it lingers. It curls under the rafters, pools in the corners, drifts across your bed and into your clothes and up your nose, and into every fiber of your miserable medieval being. Sometimes it escapes through the window hole, if the wind's in a generous mood. Sometimes it sits low, hugging the ground like it's trying to smoke the fleas out of the rushes. Either way, you're breathing it in all day, and night, worse. Because when the fire's burning hot enough to make the cold back off, it also produces a dense fog, thick enough to chew. You try to sleep while hacking quietly into the straw. Grandma wheezes beside you like a deflating accordion. The baby is making a sound like a sick rooster. Everyone's eyes water constantly. No one questions it anymore. Tears? Smoke? Who can tell? You've learned to live with it. Adapted. The way fish adapt to water. Except your water is made of ash particles and lung damage. You don't remember what clean air feels like. You once visited a field on a warm spring day, far from the hearth. You took a deep breath and nearly passed out. Too much oxygen. Your lungs missed the smoke like old friends. You were told the smoke keeps the fleas away. You believe it. The fleas probably left just to find air. Your mother says the smoke preserves meat. You're not meat, but you still feel like you're being slowly cured for future generations. You smell like smoked ham. So does your hair, so do your bed sheets, so does the goat. Let's talk about the hearth. It's not pretty, it's not centered, it's not even especially well constructed, but it's the heart of the home. Cooking, hearth. Light, hearth. Warmth, hearth. Existential crisis, also hearth. Everyone sits near it. You fight over who gets the warm side. It radiates unevenly. The person closest gets their shins roasted like chestnuts, while the person furthest away may as well be sitting outside naked during a snowstorm. You rotate positions like rotisserie chickens. There's a stick used for poking the fire. No one knows its origin. It's older than you, possibly older than time. You respect the stick. You use it to shift logs, stir the ashes, fend off pigs, threaten siblings, and, if needed, flip burning rocks onto cold feet. The stick is law. When it's your turn to keep the fire alive at night, you don't sleep. You sit by the embers, eyes half closed, draped in a cloak that smells like a drowned sheep. The wind howls outside. The fire crackles. The room fills slowly with smoke. Your eyes burn. Your throat aches. You wrap a damp rag around your face like a sad bandit and pray you don't nod off, because if the fire dies, you die. Restarting it in winter is a nightmare. Flint, steel, straw, cold fingers, numb toes. It takes 30 minutes and 5 curses. Once it took so long your cousin got frostbite and blamed the saints. You keep it going out of fear and spite. And yet, for all the coughing, stinging, hacking and wheezing, that little fire is your lifeline. When it burns strong, you feel safe, warm, human, like maybe you'll survive this winter after all, even if your lungs are 80% soot and you cough like an asthmatic blacksmith. You shift closer now. The smoke is thick today. A log pops loudly. Your sister blinks through the haze and says, "I think the roof's on fire again." You look up. A single ember drifts upward and disappears through a crack in the thatch. You exhale. "Not yet," you say. "Give it time." You think of fire as your savior. But you've learned something the hard way. Fire doesn't love you back. Sure, it looks like a little miracle in the dark, glowing, warm, lively. But it's unreliable, demanding, easily offended. It takes your time, your wood, your sanity, and sometimes your eyebrows. And in return, it offers you... what? A 6-foot heat radius and smoke damage to the lungs. You stare into the hearth now, watching the flames dance across damp logs like they're mocking you. One side of your face is melting. The other side? Still frozen. That's the thing with medieval fire. It's not central heating. It's selective blessing. You lean in too close, your cheek starts to blister. Lean back even an inch and your nose goes numb. Balance is an art. Burning your own shadow off the wall. Common mistake. And the heat doesn't travel. Not across the room, not across the bed, not even across your own body. You'll be lying there, knees near the hearth, spine to the wall. Your shins are toasty. Your shoulders are buried in ice. Your rear end could be in hell and your toes could still snap off like icicles. You've never felt so unevenly cooked in your life. You once tried sleeping next to the fire, directly next to it. That was the winter of the accident. You rolled over in your sleep. Your cloak caught an ember. There was smoke, screaming, a slap from your mother. Now the family rule is clear. No sleeping within 1 goat length of the fire. You tried solving the problem once with rocks, not just for throwing at your brother, heated rocks. Her brilliant ancient trick. You toss a flat stone into the coals, let it sit for a while, fish it out with a stick, wrap it in rags and tuck it under your straw mattress like a medieval hot water bottle. Sounds smart, right? Except, if the cloth is too thin, it scorches your foot. Too thick, and it doesn't do anything except smell weird. And if you misjudge the temperature altogether, well, let's just say Cousin Elric had a long blister running from ankle to knee. He calls it his fire scar. Tells girls he got it in a battle. He did not. But the worst part isn't the burns. It's how short it lasts. A heated stone gives you 15 minutes of relief. Maybe 30 if you bury it under enough hay. Then, cold again. The fire doesn't care that your toes have turned into little medieval popsicles. It won't follow you to bed. It won't whisper comforting words. It just sits in the hearth eating wood and giving off smoke like it's the most important thing in the world. It's the ultimate diva. All glow. No follow-through. You know how to feed it. You've gathered sticks, peat, dried cow dung, even splinters shaved off the furniture. That's right, you're literally burning your own house to stay warm. The stool your grandfather built? Now it's kindling. Your sister's wooden spoon gone, the lid to the grain bin, charcoal. Survival means picking your favorite possessions and asking, do I love it more than I love my toes? The answer is always no. And then there's the banking ritual. Every night before bed, someone has to bank the fire. No, this isn't financial. This is peasant tradition. You take a metal poker, stir the embers down into a glowing pile, and cover them in a soft blanket of ash, like tucking in a newborn made of lava. In theory, this preserves the heat until morning. In practice, sometimes it works. Sometimes you wake up to a cold hearth, no embers, and a level of despair only medieval peasants and hungover students understand. Once, you forgot to bank the fire. You woke up with frost on your blanket. The goat was inside the bed. Your father looked at you with the disappointment of 7 generations. You've never forgotten again. And you know what happens if you let it burn too strong? The smoke thickens. The thatch above catches a tiny flame. Someone coughs so hard they puke. Your baby brother starts screaming, and suddenly you're all running around your one-room house with a bucket of last week's bathwater, trying to save what little structure you still believe in. The fire is your hero and your hostage-taker, a companion and a tormentor. It will keep you alive, but it will never make you comfortable. It'll warm your hands while your feet freeze. It'll light your stew and blind your eyes. And on the worst nights, it'll be your only hope. Sputtering, wheezing, holding the line between life and frostbite with the energy of an exhausted drunk trying to light a match in the wind. And still, every night, you gather the fuel. You bow to the flame. You whisper a prayer. And you sleep beside it, coughing, sweating, and quietly thanking it. Because without it, you wouldn't last an hour. You pull it tighter over your shoulders, if that's what you can call it. This thing that clings to you, this fraying, musty, semi-frozen mass of wool and grease and old memories. You call it a blanket. You have to. Otherwise, you'd have to admit you're sleeping under what is technically just a large oily rag with delusions of grandeur. It used to be brown, or maybe grey, or possibly blue back when someone's great-aunt was still alive and spinning it with care. But now it's the colour of smoke, dirt and goat sneeze. The texture, somewhere between burlap sack and boiled sheep. And yet, this is your last line of defence against the cold. Not the fire, not the walls, not your desperate layering of socks and tunics and everything else that hasn't already been burned for fuel. Just this blanket, this cloth corpse that smells faintly of mildew and sometimes buzzes if there is a flea nest still hiding inside the seams. You hate it, but you also love it, because in a world where the wind whistles through your walls, the straw pokes your backside and your own breath fogs in front of your face like a death omen, this rag is the only thing between you and becoming a meat popsicle. It's not warm, not really. It's warmish. It traps heat like a cup with no bottom traps water, briefly, pathetically, and only if you hold perfectly still. If you move too much, The cold rushes in underneath like it was waiting for an invitation. So you lie there rigid as a corpse, arms folded, toes curled, nose peeking just above the edge, praying no one tugs it away in the middle of the night. Especially the baby. The baby doesn't understand blanket etiquette. She kicks, rolls, flails like a fish out of water, and somehow always ends up cocooned in the only good corner of fabric, while the rest of you shiver like rejected leftovers. Your mother sometimes tries to reclaim a fair share of the blanket, yanking it gently with one hand in the dark, whispering curses like a holy woman losing faith, but she's no match for a sleeping infant with violent instincts. So instead you suffer, shivering in silence, watching your breath curl upward, hearing rats chew on something under the floor, praying for sunrise or death, whichever comes first. And this is only night 2 of winter. You used to have a second blanket. It was thinner but cleaner, and didn't smell like fermented socks. Then the roof leaked during a blizzard, and you found it frozen to the floor one morning like a medieval pizza. It never recovered. Now it lines the chicken coop. The chickens love it. You resent them. Your cousin says rich folks have multiple blankets, some even made of goose feathers. You squint at him across the room. He's got hay in his hair and dried stew on his chin. You're lying, you say. He shrugs. Maybe. The goat bleats in the corner like it's laughing at you. You roll over, carefully, trying not to let any part of you escape the protection of the blanket's edge. That's the danger zone. Once your foot slipped out from under it, just for a minute. You were half asleep. By morning your big toe had gone purple. Grandma rubbed pig fat on it and called it a gentle miracle. It still hurts when you walk. Your body adjusts after a while. You get used to the weight, the scratch, the smell. You find the exact fold that covers your ears but not your mouth. You learn to breathe shallow, keep your limbs tucked in, and pretend you're inside a warm cave instead of a collapsing dung shack. You even try to share it some nights, when the fire's died down and your father's muttering to himself about the cost of kindling. You slide an edge of the blanket toward your sister. She takes it greedily, doesn't say thank you. You don't expect her to, because the blanket's not a gift. It's not even really yours. It's just one of the few things in this entire house that's still technically whole, which makes it precious. Even if it stinks, even if it sheds, even if it once fell into the chamber pot and had to be dried over the fire for 6 hours while you cried into a turnip. It's all you've got. And the alternative? The alternative is sleeping in your clothes on a straw bed, over a dirt floor with no barrier between you and a midnight frost that has no mercy. So you curl tighter. You pull the blanket up to your chin and press your toes into the goat's belly. It snorts. You both settle. And as the wind moans through the cracks in the roof, and the last ember of the hearth winks out like a dying eye, you hold your oily rag close and whisper into the dark, "Just keep me warm enough to see morning." Because in the medieval winter, that's all a blanket really needs to do. You're lying in your bed, which is a bold term, because what you're actually lying in is a flattened, lumpy sack filled with something that used to be straw, might still be straw, or could very well be a decomposing salad of mold, insects, and memories. And worse, you're not just on the mattress, you are the mattress. You are the pressure, the padding, the insulation, the structural support, and the hapless fool keeping the whole thing from collapsing into the cold ground. There is no memory foam, no springs, no bounce, only crunch. A slow, sad crunch that follows your every move like a groan from the earth itself saying, "Why are you doing this again?" Your mattress was once a sack, a fine burlap relic, stitched together by someone with good intentions and very poor sewing skills. It was filled with dry straw and placed carefully over the dirt floor, just far enough from the hearth to avoid setting it ablaze, but close enough to occasionally catch some heat from the fire if the wind wasn't being rude. And for a few glorious days in early autumn, it was almost comfortable, until it rained. The roof leaked. The floor turned to soup. The straw sucked in the moisture like a sponge, desperate for trauma, and it never dried again. Now, every time you roll over, the mattress exhales something musty and wet. Sometimes it squishes. Sometimes it crunches. Sometimes it both squishes and crunches at once, like biting into a rotten apple. You try not to think about what lives inside it. You hear things, you feel things, little scuttles, soft vibrations, You once found a beetle wedged into your shoulder blade. You flicked it away without thinking, because, honestly, you'd rather sleep with the bugs than on the cold, freezing floor. Because the only thing worse than being the mattress is having no mattress at all. Your cousin tried that one night. Decided he'd sleep close to the fire. Just curled up on some rushes near the hearth like a dog that lost its will to bark. By morning his backside was damp, his face was ash-smeared, and he woke up with a chicken sitting on his ribs. He never tried it again. You once dreamed of a raised bed. Something with legs. Something that separates you from the dirt, the bugs, the wet. Something rich people have. But raised beds are for people who don't share their sleeping space with 5 family members, a pig and a goat named Lettuce. There's no space for frames here. No privacy. No wood to waste. So instead, you settle back into your mattress-shaped hay compost and become one with it. Because in the medieval world, that's the trick. You stop thinking of the bed as a thing you lie on and start thinking of it as a thing you lie as. You are the warmth. You are the padding. You are the shape that others pile on top of. Sometimes there are 2 people on the bed, sometimes 4. Sometimes an entire branch of your family tree squeezes in, pressing you flat like a forgotten pancake at the bottom of a medieval buffet. You wake up with someone's elbow in your neck, someone else's foot in your armpit, and a distinct smell of fermented cabbage you hope is from dinner. You don't move, because moving shifts the hay, and shifting the hay might reveal the cold layer, the one near the bottom, where the straw is damp and the air is sharp and the rushes haven't been replaced since last Lent. If you find that layer in the middle of the night, you will not sleep again. There's also the lice. You try not to think about them, but they think about you, constantly. They live in the straw, they live in your clothes, they live in your hair, your neighbor's hair, your blanket's blanket. Sometimes you scratch so much in your sleep you wake up with hay in your mouth. You don't spit it out, it's cleanish. You tried airing the mattress once, dragged the whole sack outside on a sunny day. Beat it with a stick. Let it sit in the breeze. You thought it helped. But that night, it smelled like wet dog and onion stew. Then a chicken pooped on it. Now it stays indoors, forever. You've developed a 6th sense. You know which corners of the bed are safest. You've memorized the location of every damp spot, every rogue twig, every sharp stalk that likes to jab your thigh when you're dreaming of dry feet and goose feathers. You shift yourself into position like a corpse preparing for burial and whisper to the gods of straw, "Just get me through the night." Sometimes you even fall asleep, just enough to dream that you're floating on a cloud, only to be jolted awake by your father's snore, your brother's toe, or the goat's enthusiastic sneezing fit. You smile in the dark, because even if your bed is a sack of rotting straw, at least it's not the floor. You never planned on sharing a bedroom with a cow, but then again you never planned on sleeping under a moldy roof, on a mattress that smells like pond water, or in a house so drafty it should come with a sail. And so, here you are, face to face, with Brunhilde. She's not just your cow, she's your radiator. Not that she knows this. She doesn't care. She's just chewing, slowly, thoughtfully, as if reflecting on her own superiority, while emitting a steady stream of warm breath that smells like boiled cabbage and barnyard tragedy. But that breath is keeping your face from freezing off. You nestle in closer. She doesn't move. You take that as affection. Your ancestors used to worship the sun. You worship Brunhilde. In the heart of winter, she's the closest thing you have to a divine source of heat. The fire is weak. The walls are thinner than your patience. Your blanket is a crunchy tortilla of wool and smoke. But this cow, she radiates. It's not just her breath. Her body itself is a furnace, a slow, steaming, shaggy miracle. She's a walking pile of flesh-powered central heating wrapped in fur and manure. Her side is warm. Her belly is warmer. Her udder, though controversial, is the hottest spot in the house if you're brave enough to sleep near it. Your little cousin once did. He came back sticky and changed. It's not just you clinging to livestock at night. Your whole family does it. There are chickens nesting in baskets near the fire, goats curled up near the door like guard dogs with poor attitudes, a pig that lives under the bench and snores louder than your uncle. It's not a home, it's a barn with opinions. But this isn't weird. It's strategic. Every animal adds body heat. Every snort, cluck, and sigh is one more shield against the frost. Forget privacy. Forget hygiene. Forget the fact that your bedroom smells like a barnyard exploded into a wet wool closet. In medieval winter, you measure comfort in degrees of livestock proximity. And a cow is the jackpot. Brunhilde shifts her weight. You shift with her. She exhales through her nostrils. You bask in it like it's a spa mist. You're not proud of this, but you're not ashamed either. Because 2 winters ago you didn't have a cow, you had a sheep. And while sheep are fine, great even, when it comes to body heat, they're like lukewarm teapots compared to the volcanic wonder that is Brunhilde. She's massive, she's sweaty, she's breathing. That's all you need. She sometimes poops in the house. This is not ideal, nor is it rare. The floor is already a mess of dirt, straw, and broken dreams. One more contribution from Brunhilde just adds texture. You clean it up when you notice, or when someone steps in it, or when the smell becomes so powerful it begins to form religious visions. But honestly, you forgive her. Because when the night is so cold your teeth ache, and the fire is choking on wet logs, and your sister just stole your half of the blanket, Brunhilde is there, heavy-heaving, holy. You lay your palm against her side and swear you can feel your fingers coming back to life. Your father says the cow brings warmth. Your mother says the cow brings flies. Both are correct. By late winter, the air in the house is thick, with smoke, with stink, with buzzing life. You swat something off your face and don't ask what it was. If you're warm, you don't complain. That's the rule. And sure, she farts. Loudly, frequently, with the kind of gusto that shakes loose rafters. You're used to it now. Your cousin once cried during dinner, not because of the sound, because of the heat. I felt it on my neck, he whispered, pale with horror. We all nodded, silent, united in trauma, but also deeply, deeply grateful. You don't talk about it often, but everyone knows the real truth. If the cow dies, you die. You don't have enough wood, you don't have enough blankets, the fire alone won't save you. But Brunhilde, she's your fortress, your furnace, your fleshy, foul-smelling miracle. She shifts again. You press your foot against her flank. She doesn't flinch. You close your eyes and whisper, thank you. Because in the middle of medieval winter, with frost creeping through the walls, lice in your hair and ash in your lungs, your only heater is a cow. And tonight, she's the reason you'll wake up. You're lying in bed perfectly still, one arm tucked under your head, one foot nestled into the pig's belly, face half buried in the crusty corner of your shared blanket. You've found the exact position where your body doesn't touch any exposed parts of the mattress, and the cow's warmth is just barely reaching your knees. It's the best sleep you've had in days. And then, there it is, the draft. It doesn't arrive with a bang. It sneaks. A cold finger across your cheek, a silent creep down your spine, a tiny ghost whispering, "Did you miss me?" You flinch, you twitch, you pull the blanket up. Too late. It's found the gap. It always does. This isn't just a breeze, this isn't fresh air or circulation or nature's way of keeping things lively. This is the draft. Capital D. A recurring character in your life. A rude, invisible little demon that slips in uninvited and immediately heads for the back of your neck like it's got a grudge. And it does. Because unlike rain or snow or even smoke, this draft feels targeted. It doesn't swirl politely around the room, it finds you, wherever you are, however many layers you're wearing. No matter how many holes you've stuffed with rags, straw, socks, or desperation, it knows, and it's coming. You've spent hours, days, trying to stop it. You've plugged cracks in the wall with sheep wool, goat hair, chewed-up bread, moss, old tunics, wet cloth, and one time a dead rat you found behind the woodpile. Nothing works, because the walls aren't solid. They're wattle and daub, woven sticks smeared with mud and optimism, and over time that optimism cracks. Mud dries, straw shrinks, the wind finds the gap, and once it's in, it doesn't just settle, it circulates, like it's got an agenda. Your sister once said she heard the draft whisper her name. She wasn't joking. She'd stuffed herself into the middle of the family pile, wrapped in 3 cloaks and the back half of the curtain. And suddenly, a breeze, right down her collarbone, she screamed. We all felt it. It was personal. You've tried blocking it, hung cloth over the windows, draped animal hides over the door. Once you nailed a board across a particularly aggressive crack near the hearth. The draft moved to the floorboards, which is funny because you don't have floorboards, just dirt, and somehow the dirt was breathing cold air like the house had taken up winter as a hobby. You've noticed something over time. The draft is smart. It waits until the fire dies down, until everyone's finally asleep, until the cow settles, until the goat snores, until the baby has stopped screaming and the straw's gone quiet. That's when it comes, sliding in like a jealous ghost, looking for exposed toes, open collars, or any patch of bare skin foolish enough to exist in this century. You could be wrapped in 10 layers, curled into the fetal position, and buried under a haystack, and still it finds your earlobe. You've tied cloth around your head like a medieval ninja. You've stuffed moss into your sleeves. You once tried sleeping with your face inside a wool sock. It still got in. Your grandmother claims there's a spirit in the draft, an old hag who walks the wind and pokes children who complain too much. You used to laugh at her. Now, you nod solemnly and whisper an apology before bed, just in case. Because maybe the draft is alive. Maybe it remembers last week when you said you were getting used to the cold. Maybe it's here to remind you that no one gets used to this. It moves through the house like it's shopping for victims. One moment it's on your ankles, then it's behind your knees, then it snakes into your armpit and settles in like it paid rent. You shudder, shift, try to smother it. Nothing. The cold stays. You pray the pig rolls over. You pray for a fart from the cow. You'd take any form of heat at this point. Instead, you get one single, polite tickle of freezing air that slides down the back of your neck like a melting icicle and disappears, leaving behind a full-body shiver and a whispered memory of comfort lost. You've learned to live with it. You know which part of the room it favors. You sleep facing the wall now, mouth covered, arms tucked, toes clenched. The draft still visits, but now, when it does, you just blink in the darkness and say, "I know you." Because when the wind hates you this much, all you can do is hate it back and try not to die before spring. Your mattress squeaks as you shift. Not from springs. There are no springs, no coils, no padding, no gentle suspension. Just straw, damp straw, compressed under you, and your mother, your 2 siblings, a snoring uncle, and, most unexpectedly, a goose. Yes, a goose. You don't know when she started sleeping here. Maybe she got cold. Maybe she got lonely. Maybe she just realized you're too tired to stop her. But now she's here. Every night, curled near your feet like a honking, feathered furnace that also occasionally bites your toes in her sleep. It wasn't always this crowded. Once upon a time, when you were younger, it was just you and your sister sharing the straw mattress in the corner. Then came the bad winter. Then came the flooding. Then came your uncle, limping home with nothing but a drinking cup and a mysterious cough. Now the house feels smaller. The nights feel longer. And the bed? The bed has become a communal survival raft. Everyone piles in at once, not for comfort, not for bonding, but because warmth only works when it's smothered beneath a heap of poor unwashed relatives. Your mother sleeps with her back to you. Your sister wraps her arms around the goose. Your uncle spreads out like a bear passed out in the middle of a field, snoring loud enough to make the goat grumble. Your little brother insists on sleeping sideways. You're not sure why. But every night, without fail, he rotates 90 degrees like a human sundial and kicks you squarely in the spleen. You used to yell. Now you just grunt and shift a few inches closer to the wall, where the draft lives. Your choices are, kick your family to reclaim some space and risk waking up the baby, or become a human draft blocker and freeze your backside off. You always choose the cold, because no one wants to be the person who starts a blanket war. The blanket isn't a real blanket. It's more of a concept. A large, woolly, slightly crispy cloth rectangle that everyone clings to like it's the last lifeboat on a sinking ship. There's no top or bottom, no assigned corners, only silent negotiations, passive-aggressive tugs, and occasional foot stabbings when someone gets greedy. And the goose, she always ends up with the best part. Goose etiquette is complex. You don't look her in the eye. You don't touch her when she's awake. You never, under any circumstance, try to move her once she's nestled. Last time someone did, she honked so loud she woke the entire family and pecked your uncle on the chin. He still has the scar. She is not just a bird, she is a presence. Sharing a bed like this changes you. You learn not to stretch. not to turn, not to breathe too loud. You sleep curled like a shrimp, arms pressed to your chest, face tilted sideways so your nose doesn't freeze off. Your dreams become compact, efficient, small flashes of warmth, bread, and silence that vanish the moment your brother rolls over and takes the blanket with him. And the smell? It's complex. Imagine damp wool, mixed with barnyard, mixed with unwashed feet, mixed with hay that's been reheated multiple times by body heat and bad decisions. Add in the occasional burst of goose breath or pig gas, and you've got something that would terrify even the bravest candle maker. You've grown used to it. You have to, because complaining doesn't fix it. Complaining gets you kicked to the floor. There's a system now, unspoken, but understood. Father always takes the outside edge, closest to the fire but farthest from the goose. Mother is next. She guards the blanket like it's gold. You're in the middle, not because you're important, but because you're quiet and compact. Your siblings are chaos. They sprawl, drool, steal covers, mutter in their sleep. Uncle farts, loudly, often. You don't ask questions anymore. You just survive. Sometimes you fantasize about a bed to yourself. One with legs, one with a pillow. One where you don't have to worry about poultry violence or midnight flatulence. But then you wake up, to the sound of the fire crackling, the goose softly honking in her sleep, your sister drooling on your shoulder, and you realize that this is warmth. Weird, smelly, crowded, noisy warmth. The only kind there is in winter, and somehow it's enough. Your eyes open, not because you want them to, because your body is screaming. Every joint aches, your fingers are stiff, your nose is numb, your teeth are rattling like dice in a cursed tavern cup, and for a split second you think, this is it. I'm dying. But then the goose honks in your ear, and your brother coughs something wet onto your hair, and you realize, nope, still alive. Just medieval. Mornings here are violent, not with weapons or shouting, but with cold. Cold that feels like punishment, like the universe woke up before you did and decided your suffering wasn't yet complete. It starts at the edges of your body. Your toes are frozen, not just cold, frozen. Your heels are blocks of ice. Your spine, brittle, your nose, leaking, solid, or both. You try to shift position, you can't. Your joints won't bend. Your blanket is stiff. And someone's leg, possibly human, possibly goat, is pinning your arm down like a gravestone. You wiggle, you grunt, you groan. The straw pokes your hip like it wants a turn. You breathe. The air is so cold it hurts. You cough, instantly regret it. The movement dislodges the entire bed pile. A chain reaction begins. Your sister rolls over and takes the blanket. The goose flaps her wings and poops a little. Your uncle snores louder. The pig gets up to stretch. You sigh, lips trembling, and sit up slowly, like a corpse trying to decide whether resurrection is worth the effort, and that's when it hits you. The full force of the morning chill, you gasp, instinctively wrap your arms around yourself. Too late. The cold has already wrapped around you. It's not just in the air, it's in your bones. It's the kind of cold that makes you doubt memory. You start to wonder if warmth ever existed. Was fire just a dream? Was comfort ever real? You stare at your own hands. They're a weird color, a little blue, a little purple, a little, maybe I should have slept next to the cow. You don't move right away. You wait, like a soldier in a trench, preparing to charge across no man's land. Because you know what happens next. You'll have to get up, leave the blanket, leave the body heat, leave the somewhat moist depression in the straw where your body made its temporary peace with the world. You'll have to stand on the stone floor barefoot, because your shoes are stiff with ice. And before you even think about food or chores or the 3 inches of frost on the inside of the window, you'll have to go outside, to pee. Your body tries to negotiate. Just wait a few more minutes, it says. Someone else will get up first. Maybe the fire will magically relight itself. Maybe the sun will develop empathy. You don't move. The goose stares at you. You stare back. Eventually, nature wins. You throw off the blanket with the bravery of a man leaping into war. Immediately regret it. It's like being slapped with snow. Every part of you is screaming. You shuffle toward the door in a half crouch, arms crossed over your chest, teeth clicking Morse code for kill me. You bump into your sister. She's already up, muttering curses and rubbing her arms. You share a look, pure, silent suffering. No words needed, just medieval things. You reach the door, it creaks open like it doesn't want to help. The wind howls through the gap like a wolf that smelled sadness. You step outside. The ground crunches under your feet, frost everywhere, ice on the bucket, chickens glaring at you like you owe them money. You do your business quickly. It's not a spiritual experience. It's a speed run. You come back inside. Your toes are gone. You don't remember leaving them behind, but they're not responding to commands anymore. You crawl back toward the hearth. There's no fire yet. Just a few grey coals and the hope that someone else remembered to bank it last night. You crouch there, huddled, shaking. You don't say it out loud, but deep inside your soul, a small voice mutters, "Why didn't we just move to Italy?" And then, the sun peeks through the window, a miserable, weak little sliver of gold. You sigh, and begin the ritual of pretending this is normal. Because in the Middle Ages, waking up in misery isn't a sign something went wrong. It's a sign you survived the night. You reach under the bed for your socks. They're exactly where you left them, crumpled into two stiff, crusty bundles beside the firewood scraps and a chicken feather that may or may not be cursed. You pick one up. It bends, not like cloth, like cardboard. You sigh, tap it against your palm. It makes a sound like dried leaves breaking. These are your socks, and they are very much alive. Not alive in the cozy, knitted, grandmotherly sense. Alive in the infested, slightly damp, definitely hosting something you didn't invite sense. Your socks haven't been washed in weeks? Months? They were once wool. Probably. Now they're more of a compressed substance. Equal parts foot grease, soot, and barnyard history. You try not to look inside. You did that once and found a beetle. You still think about it sometimes. In the quiet hours when your toes tingle. Putting them on is an art form. You start by loosening the top, where the wool has crusted into a shape that resembles a medieval bread roll. You pry it open with your thumbs, like splitting a stale pastry. A small puff of something, dust, ash, regret, floats into the air. You look around. No one else in the room is wearing socks. Your brother's barefoot again, his feet are grey, like uncooked meat. Your mother's wrapped hers in cloth. Your uncle has just accepted frostbite as a lifestyle. Only you are fool enough to wear actual socks. And now you must live with that decision. You slide the first one on, it's stiff at the heel, the toe folds in. You wiggle, curse, try again. Eventually you succeed, it fits, sort of. Like forcing your foot into a damp mitten full of hay. You pull the second one on. It smells acidic. You ignore that. Because once they're on, something incredible happens. You feel less dead. Not warm. Never warm. But contained. Sealed. Emotionally prepared for whatever cold horror awaits outside. Wearing socks is like carrying a secret. A layer of fabric between you and the misery. Even if that fabric might be harboring a fungal colony that's evolving its own language. You once tried washing them. Once. You soaked them in the creek. Scrubbed them with a stone. Watched the water turn brown, then black, then kind of a chunky green. Left them out to dry, they froze solid. And when you brought them in the next morning, a mouse had moved in. You gave up. Now you just air them near the fire, or wear them wet and let your foot steam bake them dry. You're not proud of this, but you're not alone. Sock culture in your house is informal. You trade, steal, swap them in the dark when no one's looking. There is no such thing as a matching pair, there are only survivors, and sometimes you don't wear them on your feet. Your sister once tied hers around her ears to keep warm. Your cousin used one as a mitten until he forgot and wiped his nose with it. You've wrapped one around your spoon handle because the metal was too cold to touch. In medieval winter, socks aren't just clothing. They're tools, weapons, companions, enemies. Sometimes, all at once, you shift your toes. The fabric clings. Something crinkles. You pretend not to notice. You'll deal with it later or never. Because once the socks are on, you don't take them off again until something physically forces you to. Like a flood, or a medical emergency, or spring. Whichever comes first. The best part. They do help. Not much. Not always. But when the wind bites, and your boots leak, and the snow starts sneaking in around the edges, you feel something, not warmth, but defiance. A tiny act of resistance, a little woolly scream into the void. And on the coldest mornings, when your feet ache and your breath fogs and the fire refuses to light, sometimes that's enough, because your socks may be stiff, moldy, and potentially sentient, but they're yours, and they're the only thing standing between your toes and the medieval abyss. You did everything right. You stacked the wood. You added the kindling. You even blew into the coals like a desperate dragon trying to pass a lung exam. And now, the fire is lit. You did it. It's real. It's flickering. It's warm-ish. You stare at the tiny orange flames with pride, your hands trembling from cold and maybe just a little ego. And then, you realize something horrifying. You're still cold. Not just a little cold, freezing. Your fingers are stiff, your toes are numb, your ears feel like old potatoes someone left outside overnight. And the fire, it's sitting there, crackling quietly. Not heating the room, not warming your bones, not saving your soul, just existing, like it thinks it's doing enough by showing up. You shuffle closer, too close. The heat only goes about a foot in any direction. Beyond that, just vibes. Your front starts to warm, your back, an ice cube. You rotate like a medieval rotisserie chicken, trying to evenly distribute the warmth. It's a game of patience and pain. Because the moment your front gets cozy, your back starts crying. You try to twist, stretch, bend. You look like you're performing a sad, creaky, interpretive dance to the song of "Why Did I Ever Get Out of Bed?" The room is still freezing. Because medieval fireplaces don't actually heat rooms. They heat a corner. A vague zone. The rest of the space stays the same temperature as outside, but with more smoke and fewer regrets. Your walls aren't insulated. Your ceiling leaks. The draft is back and doing pirouettes in the middle of the room. And worst of all, most of the fire's heat is being sucked straight out the chimney, because that's how chimneys work in your world, like inverted funnels funneling all your hard-earned warmth directly into the sky. It's beautiful, really. Like setting your hopes on fire and watching them ascend. You try to add more wood. It hisses. Because, surprise, it's damp. Everything's damp. Your boots, your hair, your dreams. The wood smolders angrily and releases a plume of thick smoke that curls into your eyes, your throat, and your breakfast. You cough, the goose coughs. Your cousin opens the door and in comes a gust of air so cold the fire immediately shrinks in fear. You're not mad. You're just betrayed. All those fairy tales lied to you. Fire is supposed to be the savior, the protector, the thing that turns a house into a home, but here, it's just another guest, temperamental, unreliable, possibly drunk. It burns too fast. It smokes too much. And somehow it manages to make your face sweat while your toes develop frostbite. You want to scream, but that would waste precious body heat. You try something new. You squat beside the hearth, open your cloak, and let the warmth flood in like a prayer. For 30 seconds, it's paradise. Then the log shifts. The flames lean left, and suddenly the fire is warming your knee and nothing else. You shuffle, you re-angle. You become the saddest human sundial ever forged by poverty and desperation. And then, the fire starts to die. Already. Because you used the dry wood first. Now you're stuck with the soggy, worm-infested leftovers that hiss like angry cats and burn with all the enthusiasm of wet bread. You scramble to save it. Blow, fan, beg. You curse in 3 languages and consider offering the fire your last piece of bread as tribute. It flares up, mockingly, and then returns to a state of lukewarm disappointment, like a medieval parent watching you try to dance. You sigh and sit back. Your back is freezing again, your socks are steaming, the goose is glaring at the hearth like it personally insulted her. And you realize this is it. This is the reality of winter warmth. A smoky, unpredictable, spiteful little flame that doesn't love you back. Still, you tend it. Because there's nothing else. No radiators. No heated floors. No thermostat you can slap in frustration. Just this fire, small, rude, moody, but yours. And somehow, despite everything, still better than no fire at all. It's been weeks, months, you've lost track. But one thing is certain. You haven't taken off your shirt since November. And now it's January. Maybe. Time is slippery when the sun rises at breakfast and sets before dinner. But your shirt is constant, your companion, your prison, your second skin, and it smells like it. It started as a practical decision. Cold weather, no firewood, wind that howls through your walls like it's auditioning for a ghost opera. So you said to yourself, let's just keep it on for now, just one more day. That was 40 days ago. Since then, you've changed socks once, scrubbed your face with frozen water twice, and possibly hallucinated a conversation with the goose. But the shirt stayed. Taking it off now would be dangerous. For you, for others, for society. Because this isn't just about removing fabric. This is about unleashing the ecosystem. Your shirt has evolved. It was wool once. Now it's wool, smoke, salt, hay, oil, and whatever mysterious paste lives between your shoulder blades. It has layers, not visual layers, textural layers. If you took it off and held it to the light, it might block the sun. You suspect it's growing its own hair. There are sounds sometimes, little creaks, a crunch when you move too fast. You're not sure what's in there, but you know this. It's warm. Sure, you itch. Sure, there are patches of skin that feel like they've been replaced with burlap. Sure, your armpits now smell like a soup that was left out during a thunderstorm and then adopted by a badger. But at least you're not cold. The shirt traps your body heat. It also traps your shame, your sins, and possibly a small colony of beetles. But mostly the heat, and in medieval winter that's sacred. Once your cousin dared you to take it off, said it was unnatural, said you were becoming one with the shirt. You tried, you grabbed the hem, pulled, and felt something. Snap. You froze. Not from the cold, but from fear. Because it wasn't the fabric that snapped. It was the bond between you and the shirt. You've never tried again. You've grown used to the smell. Others have not. The goat avoids you now. The baby cries when you sit too close. Your sister once leaned in to borrow your spoon, sniffed and screamed like she'd seen the devil in a bucket of milk. You apologized. She hasn't spoken to you since, but she doesn't understand. This shirt is your insulation, your armor, your closest friend. You've added things over time, a tunic, a cloak, a scrap of blanket that once belonged to a dog. But underneath it all, against your skin, is the shirt, and you're scared. Because one day the frost will melt, the sun will return, the birds will chirp, and someone will say, it's spring. You can take it off now. But by then, will you still be able to? You try not to think about it. Instead, you stretch your arms and listen to the fabric crack. A flake of something falls off your sleeve and hits the floor with a sound you've learned not to investigate. You press your hand to your chest. It's warm. You smile. Because in a world of damp beds, cold fires, and violent geese, this shirt is doing its job, and you're not taking it off until someone physically restrains you and throws you into the creek. Even then, you'll resist. Because if surviving winter means being a slightly stinky, itchy, semi-feral medieval burrito, then so be it. You've tried everything. The hearth, the cow, the bundle of cousins. You've wrapped yourself in damp blankets, hugged a chicken, even pressed your feet into the fire ashes until your mother screamed and beat you with a ladle. But now you've discovered something extraordinary, something both forbidden and foul. The outhouse is warm, not fire warm, not blanket warm, not even a live animal warm, but something darker, more ancient. A slow, rising, body-generated heat that curls up from the pit below and strokes your legs like a perverted ghost. You don't talk about it. No one does. But every peasant knows. If you're truly cold, truly desperate, and can stomach the smell, you go to the outhouse and you sit, not to relieve yourself, not for business, but for warmth. It's always empty in the morning, because no one wants to be the first one to sit on the ice seat. You know the drill. You knock the frost off with a stick, mutter a prayer to St. Defrostitus, and lower yourself carefully, slowly, until you make contact with the rim. It steals your soul for a second, you black out, you come back gasping, but once the shock passes, you feel it, the heat. It rises from the hole like a foul little chimney of misery warmth. You try not to think about what is producing it. You just close your eyes, hug yourself, and enjoy the strange, shameful embrace of human fermentation. Because this heat is earned. This is compost comfort. Organic warmth cooked gently in the guts of the people you live with. You're bathing in second-hand soup, and somehow it's the coziest place you've been all week. There's something meditative about it, the way the wind doesn't reach you, the way the walls block the worst of the draft, the way the steam curls up and gently cooks your knees like you're being offered to hell slowly. You breathe through your mouth carefully, you focus on your feet thawing. You listen to the faint hum of flies behind the wallboards. You try not to cry because you know deep in your heart that this is both the lowest and highest point of your winter. Of course, you can't stay long. There are rules, unspoken ones. You don't hog the outhouse. You don't talk about why you were in there for 20 minutes just thinking. You don't get too comfortable, because if someone knocks, you have 5 seconds to leave or face eternal shame. The goose will know. She always knows. But in that stolen moment, that strange, smelly pocket of peace, you feel something like luxury. You imagine kings with golden toilets and you laugh, because none of them have this organic, fermented, compost-cooked leg warmth. They don't know what it's like to be frozen to the marrow and then slowly resurrected by the sins of dinner past. They don't understand the Gothic spa that is the peasant outhouse in winter, and they never will. You finish your session, stand slowly, wipe your eyes, not from crying, from the ammonia. You stagger out into the wind. It punches you in the chest, but your legs are warm. For the next 5 glorious minutes, you feel invincible. It starts like this. You're standing by the hearth, too close because the fire's tiny and you're desperate, and your knees haven't felt blood circulation in 4 days. You lean in. You're wearing 3 tunics, a wool cloak, a sheepskin collar, 2 socks on the same foot, and a blanket you stole from a dog's grave. And still you're cold. So you do what any logical medieval person would do. You creep closer to the flames, closer still, until you smell yourself. At first it's faint, just a hint, like burnt hair or sadness. You think maybe it's the stew, or your uncle's foot, or the straw you've been sleeping on for 3 months, but then you hear it, the crackle. You freeze, which is ironic, because a part of you might be cooking. You look down. The edge of your cloak is smoking. Your shirt sleeve is curling. Your tunic smells like regret and bacon. You slap at yourself like a panicked moth, hands flapping, eyes wild, muttering things that sound vaguely biblical. You back away, trip over the goose, fall into the pig. The pig screams. Someone yells, "Fire!" And then, just like that, it's out. You're safe. Sort of. Your elbow is charred. Your shirt has a hole. Your dignity has fled to the next village. But you are somehow still alive. This isn't rare. This happens a lot. Because when you're dressed like a sentient hay bale and spend 90% of your day loitering near open flames, catching fire becomes a very real part of your winter routine. You've seen it before. The girl from the next farm over, her braid lit up like a candle wick. Your cousin's trousers went up while he was squatting to stir porridge. The local priest once set his beard alight during evening prayers and had to finish the sermon with 1 eyebrow and half a moustache. Fire isn't romantic. Fire is treacherous. And here's the worst part. You often don't notice right away. Why? Because you're already numb. Your clothes are already stiff. The smell of burning wool isn't that different from the smell of everything else in the house. You could be actively sizzling and think, "Wow, it's finally warm in here." By the time someone yells, "Hey, your hat's smoking," it's already too late. You've become a human candle again. The rules are simple. Never lean over the fire. Never dry your socks while wearing them. Never sit too close when you're wrapped in anything that crinkles. Never trust a gust of wind. You've broken all of them. Twice. You've started doing small precautionary slaps, just casually patting your sleeves throughout the day like you're paranoid or rehearsing a sad medieval dance move. You also sniff your armpits. Not for hygiene, but for smoke detection. Because it's happened so often, you've developed a 6th sense. You know the signs. Sudden warmth in only one area. Crackling sound that isn't the firewood. Goose looking at you with judgment. Cousins scattering all indicators you might be actively combusting. And if that happens, you know the drill. Drop, roll, hope the floor isn't frozen. Pray you don't roll into the hearth and make things worse. Yell something dramatic like "Save the bread" or "Not again." Then slap yourself silly until the flames surrender. It's not graceful, but nothing in your life is. Afterward, someone might offer you water, not to drink, to pour on your shirt, or maybe just your dignity. You sit there steaming, literally, looking like a guilty soup ingredient, and wonder how you survived this long. Then you laugh, because somehow you're still cold. Even while smoking, you wake up to someone gently poking your cheek with a wooden spoon, which is never a good sign, especially when that someone is your mother, whispering prayers and squinting at your face like she's not entirely sure you're breathing. You blink. She gasps. "Oh, thank God," she mutters. "I was just about to put you on the cart." Wait. What? You sit up, slowly. Everything cracks. Your neck, your back, your one good knee. The family pig squeals and scampers off your feet. Your brother sighs in disappointment and mutters, "I was hoping I could have your boots." And that's when it hits you. They thought you were dead. Apparently you were sleeping a little too still. Your hands were folded neatly over your chest. Your lips were blue. Common. Your breath wasn't visible. Normal. And your body was so cold to the touch that your sister screamed when she brushed against you trying to steal the blanket. That was 4 hours ago. Since then, there's been a quiet, unspoken pre-funeral protocol underway. Your uncle said a few words. Someone lit a candle. Your mother was already picking out which goose feathers to line your burial shroud. The only thing they hadn't done yet was dig the hole, because, well, the ground's frozen. To be fair, you did feel kind of dead. You fell asleep in the usual contorted peasant position, one arm under the dog, one leg on the pig, one eye open in case the goose tried anything. The fire had gone out. Again. The wind was howling through the thatch like it was chasing a grudge. You pulled the blanket up over your nose and made a mental note to stop breathing so loudly. Then everything went dark. Peaceful even. Except apparently your peaceful looked suspiciously like, "This soul has left the body." You try to defend yourself. "I was sleeping," you croak. Your voice sounds like a dried-out toad, without twitching, or groaning, or snoring like a horse trapped in a wine barrel, your cousin replies. You shrug. Guess your body finally gave up its nightly performance of the frozen miserable. This isn't the first time either. People fall asleep and don't wake up more often than anyone's comfortable admitting. Sometimes it's old folks, sometimes it's babies, sometimes it's just the cold. Your village has rules. If they don't move by sunrise, check for breath. If they're still stiff by breakfast, poke them with something. If they smell funny by lunch, it's official. You were approaching stage 2. The real tragedy? They were going to bury you in the shirt. The shirt, your old itchy sacred heat-hoarding relic, the one that's been fused to your skin since late fall. You shudder. You were almost buried in that thing without saying goodbye, or changing into something more flattering, like your slightly less disgusting tunic. You look around the room. Everyone's gone back to their business. Your mother's stirring porridge like nothing happened. Your cousin's rearranging kindling and humming. Even the goose has moved on emotionally. But you're sitting there, sweating slightly from the adrenaline of almost having your funeral planned while you napped. The worst part? You didn't even get a good rest. Your neck hurts, your toes still don't work, and someone drooled on your forehead. Probably the pig, again. You shuffle over to the fire and poke at the coals. No warmth, just ash. You sigh and mumble, "Still alive," to no one in particular. Your sister glances over and shrugs. For now. Then she offers you a spoonful of porridge. You take it, because in this house, in this winter, in this absurd life, sometimes not dying earns you breakfast. You wake up feeling oddly uplifted. Your neck hurts less than usual. Your head is slightly elevated. The straw poking your back is in its usual aggressive formation, but your head, suspiciously cushioned. For one miraculous moment you think, maybe my pillow has finally softened. Maybe, just maybe, the family finally replaced the sack of goat hair and barley husk with something that doesn't smell like cheese and childhood trauma. You smile, you stretch, you sit up, crack, something warm, something oval, something now bursting under your neck. You freeze, you know that feeling, you felt it before. The goose was struck again. You reach behind your head. Your hand comes back wet, sticky, slightly hopeful. Maybe it's just porridge. Nope, it's egg. And not a fresh one either. This one's been incubating under your scalp crease for hours. It's lukewarm, it's partially cracked, and it smells like betrayal. You turn your head slowly. The goose is standing by your mat, neck stretched, staring, proud, unapologetic, borderline smug. You lock eyes, it honks. You can't prove it, but that honk had tone. And you realize this wasn't an accident, this was intentional. See, the goose has been sleeping in your bed for months now, not by invitation. She just moved in. She likes the heat, the body proximity, the smell of your hair grease. You protested at first, but she bit your fingers, squawked in your face, and refused to leave. Now she lays eggs there. Not in the straw pile, not in the coop, in your pillow, because apparently you are the nest now. This is not normal, even by peasant standards. The other geese lay eggs like civilized creatures, on the ground, in the hay, sometimes under a sleeping pig for warmth. But this one? She prefers your skull groove, the perfect egg cup formed by years of malnutrition and emotional trauma. Your family finds it hilarious. Your brother calls you featherhead. Your mother says you should be grateful. Eggs are food, and you're clearly some sort of divine incubator. Your uncle wants to start charging neighbors a viewing fee. Even the village priest has weighed in. Perhaps God chose you for this task. You're not convinced. You try to fight back. You fluff your pillow violently before bed. You sprinkle soot in the corner to discourage nesting. You leave decoy eggs in your brother's bed to frame him. But every morning, another egg. Same spot, same smug goose. You tried sleeping on the floor once. Woke up to her laying an egg directly on your chest. You screamed. She flapped. The pig stepped on your leg in the chaos. It wasn't worth it. Your pillow is now both bedding and henhouse. Every morning begins with a warm neck and a wet egg. You've learned to lean carefully, to roll to the side like a soldier avoiding landmines. You've started naming the eggs. Yesterday's was Harold. Today's is Eleanor. You're beginning to lose your grip. And yet, the eggs are food. Your sister fries them over the hearth. Your brother eats them raw like a psychopath. Even you nibble on one now and then, trying not to think about where it came from. Because medieval logic is simple. If it's warm, edible, and didn't fight back too hard, you eat it. Even if it was laid directly under your left ear at 3:17 a.m. by a goose who breathes like a villain. You sigh. You wipe the yolk from your hair. You turn to face the day. And as you walk past the goose, she struts after you. Confident, dominant. Your roommate, your landlord, your moral equal. There's a smell. You noticed it yesterday, but you were too hungry to care. Now it's stronger, closer, familiar somehow, like burnt wool, boiled onion, and despair. You sniff the air, then your sleeve, then your armpit, just to rule out the obvious. But no, the smell isn't coming from your shirt, your bed, or the goose, though she certainly contributes. It's coming from your hair. You stagger to the basin. It's just a cracked bowl of muddy water, but it reflects, barely. You squint, and there it is, your hair. It's smoking, not actively, not like fire. But the texture has changed. The ends are curled and frazzled. The strands hang limp like old hay. And when you touch it, it crumbles. You lift a lock near the front. It snaps clean off, like a twig. You stare at it in your palm, horrified. You've been slow roasting your scalp for weeks. It started with sleeping too close to the fire. Then the time you singed your bangs trying to dry a spoon. Then the night you used a candle to look for your sock and forgot the flame was directly under your chin. Now your hair is less hair, more artifact. A smoky halo of fragile threads clinging to your skull like it's holding onto a better century. You try brushing it. Bold move. The comb snags, catches, and then slices through an entire patch like it's trimming kindling. You stop, mostly because you're out of comb and also because you just coughed and a puff of hair floated off your head. You stare. It floats, gently, like ashes. You may actually be part chimney now, there's no fixing it. You tried rinsing with snow once. The snow turned grey. Then you tried lard. The smell stayed for weeks. You even rubbed in some crushed mint leaves your cousin said were soothing. Your scalp broke out in bumps and the goose pecked at your head all day, mistaking you for a salad. People have started commenting. Your sister calls it fog hair. Your brother says your head looks like a medieval scarecrow that fought in a fire and lost. The village priest simply stares when you walk by, crosses himself and mutters, "And ash to ash." You've considered shaving it all off, but your knife is dull, and honestly, the hair still holds heat. Just like everything else in your life, it's broken, disgusting, and slightly flammable, but still functional. Besides, boldness in winter is dangerous. Your uncle did it once after catching lice. He walked outside, took 3 steps, and froze solid like a popsicle. They found him the next morning under the woodpile, preserved like a saint in a particularly disrespectful posture. They had to thaw him with soup, so you keep the hair, the smoky, crinkly, crumbling mess. You pat it down, shape it like clay. Hope the wind doesn't blow too hard or it'll literally dissolve off your scalp like cigarette ash. Because in this house you don't have hair. You have evidence of fire, a monument to poor decisions, a halo of charred resilience. And when people wrinkle their noses or cough behind your back, you just smile because you know the truth. Your hair may be dead, but so are your standards. You wake up shivering so hard it sounds like a medieval percussion concert. Your teeth are clacking. Your knees are knocking. Your spine is trying to crawl out of your body and escape to the warmer parts of Europe. You reach for your blanket and grab something cold and hard and oddly vegetal. You blink, feel again. Yup, that's not wool, that's a turnip. You sit up slowly, confused and betrayed. The blanket, your one precious threadbare shield against the icy horrors of existence, is gone. In its place, a lumpy, frost-kissed turnip the size of a baby's head. You pick it up. It's slightly soft. It smells faintly of dirt, feet, and sadness. You look around the room like you're in a historical murder mystery. Who replaced my only source of warmth with a root vegetable? No one confesses. Your cousin is asleep but grinning. Your sister is conveniently stirring the fire without eye contact. The pig looks suspiciously comfortable in your corner. And the goose? The goose is perched on your old blanket like she's Queen of Betrayal Mountain. You stand up, you walk to her, you point, she honks. Your blanket, your holy relic of semi-warmth and crusty security, has been commandeered, pulled from your body in the night, dragged halfway across the floor and repurposed as a goose nest. A deluxe, fluff-lined, perfectly molded goose nest. She looks incredibly smug, like she knows exactly what she's done and has zero intention of apologizing. And the turnip? Decoy, a bribe, a placeholder. Someone saw your naked, shivering form and thought, better leave something, or they'll notice. So they reached for the nearest item with mass. Not a rag, not a spare sock, not a second goose, a turnip. You try to understand the logic. Maybe they thought it was heavy enough to simulate weight. Maybe they were trying to say, here, eat this and warm yourself from the inside. Or maybe, just maybe. They're all terrible people and this is your villain origin story. You confront your family. Who did this? No one answers. Your brother offers you a bite of the turnip. Your mother pats your head and mutters, you always were a deep sleeper. Your uncle tells a long story about the time he used a pumpkin as a pillow and woke up with mold in his ear. You get no justice, only goose poop. You consider taking the blanket back, but the goose bites and honks. And then your sister says she's laying again. You don't want to interrupt that. Oh, of course, because God forbid your needs interrupt the sacred egg factory. So now you're stuck. It's morning. Your bed is bare. Your hair smells like a chimney. You've got egg yolk on your ear from yesterday and no blanket to wipe it with, only a turnip. Cold, lumpy, emotionally useless. You wrap your arms around it and try to pretend it's warm. It's not, but at least it doesn't judge you, and later you'll eat it. Not because you're hungry, but out of revenge. Because in this house, warmth is fleeting, but pettiness is forever. It's early morning, the kind of morning where the air stings your nostrils before you even open your eyes. You sit up, groggy and blanketless, clutching a mostly thawed turnip and wondering if your life choices have led you to this exact moment on purpose. Then you smell it, or rather you don't, which is far worse, because the chamber pot is missing its usual bouquet of horror. And that can only mean one thing. It's frozen. You glance across the room, there it is, the pot, squatting innocently in the corner like it didn't just become a solid monument to everything unholy. You approach carefully, peer inside. Yep, frozen. Everything. Frozen into a single, solid, vaguely horrifying medieval ice sculpture. Now the household enters what can only be described as a cold war. Not metaphorical, literal. No one wants to deal with it. You all pretend it doesn't exist, that you don't smell the faint ammonia cycle in the air. That you don't hear the slight clink whenever someone shifts it by accident. That your house doesn't currently contain a biohazard stalagmite. Your brother suggests leaving it until spring. Your cousin votes to bury it under the floorboards. Your uncle says, it's nature's way of preserving memories. And your mother. She just whispers, don't knock it over. For the love of God, just don't knock it over. You consider emptying it. But how? It's a solid block. You can't pour it. You can't break it. You could chisel it, but then what? Where would you put the shards? You imagine flinging frozen discs of ancient pea out the window like medieval frisbees, or stacking them outside into a little urine snowman and hoping no one asks questions. But even worse than the disposal, the knowledge that until this thaws, no one can use it, which means trips to the frozen outhouse at midnight, holding it until your bladder tries to mutiny, secret peeing behind the shed like an exiled raccoon. You've entered what historians will one day call the dark toilet era. And still, the pot sits, frosted, dignified, radiating quiet, sinister energy from its corner. You swear it's getting bigger, that it's developing layers, that it's growing. Your sister accidentally brushes against it while reaching for a log and screams like she's seen the devil's own soup. Your mother throws a cloth over it like that will somehow neutralize the aura, but it doesn't help. You all know it's there, waiting. By day 5, the situation is dire. No one has claimed responsibility. No one has made eye contact with the pot. The goose has stopped walking near it. Even the pig avoids that corner now. And you lie awake at night imagining the slow eventual thaw, the drip, the leak, the absolute chaos when the pot returns to its natural, uncontainable state. You pray someone else deals with it first, because in this house there are only two kinds of people, those who pretend the chamber pot isn't frozen, and the one poor soul who eventually knocks it over. You reach for your boot. Your hand moves in slow motion, partly because you're tired, partly because it's frozen stiff, and partly because there's a chicken sleeping on it, but your fingers make contact. Kind of. You watch them bend. Sort of. And then, crack. A soft, dry sound. Not like snapping twigs, more like breaking stale bread, or stepping on a bug wearing a little leather coat. You stop. Stare at your hand. Your fingers, still attached, still technically fingers, but definitely sounding more and more like dried firewood. You try again. Crack. Another joint. Another knuckle. Your thumb won't fully straighten. It just clicks halfway and gives up. You wave your hand gently. It rattles. You might be turning into a percussion instrument. It's official. Your fingers are no longer soft, fleshy tools of dexterity. They are brittle, angry icicle bones, clacking with every movement and threatening to snap if you so much as pet the goat too enthusiastically. You hold them up to the fire. Nothing. They don't even tingle anymore. They just sit there stiff and ghost-colored, as if waiting for death or a stronger fire. Buttons, bread. Someone else's hand. Now the most you get is a vague pressure sensation, like you're touching things through a glove made of raw potato. You once dropped a spoon and didn't notice until the dog ran off with it. You're not alone. Everyone in the house has clicky hands. Your brother sounds like a xylophone when he stretches. Your uncle has developed a signature snap with every wave. And your cousin has officially broken 2 fingers while trying to squeeze goat cheese. He didn't scream, just stared at them and muttered, well, they weren't doing much anyway. The worst is mornings. You wake up with your fingers curled into little medieval claws, like your hands decided, let's just die like this. It takes 10 minutes of painful cracking, stretching and breathing through your teeth just to uncurl enough to scratch your nose, which, by the way, also hurts. Everything hurts. Even worse, no one wants to touch you. Your hands are cold, sharp, dangerous. You once tried to hand your sister a bowl and she yelped, dropped it, and claimed it felt like being attacked by frozen spider legs. Your mother suggested wrapping your fingers in rags, but all that did was trap the frostbite. Now they just crack from inside. You've started naming the sounds. First knuckle, pop. Middle joint, tick, thumb base, regret. You entertain yourself by tapping rhythms. It's either that or cry. But crying makes your eyes freeze, so you avoid that too. You consider dunking your hands in hot water. But last time someone tried that, Their fingers pruned, blistered and fell off, so instead you just breathe on them. Endlessly. With the kind of warm, desperate breath you usually save for lighting a damp fire. And sometimes, it works. They twitch. They tingle. They sting. And you smile through the pain, because at least that means they're still yours. For now. It was supposed to be a quick trip. Just a short walk to the neighbor's cottage to trade a sack of stale barley for a wheel of stale cheese. Or maybe it was a boot. Honestly, no one remembers. What you do remember is this. Your cousin, halfway there, saying, "I feel kind of dizzy," and then thump straight down, face first into the snow. For a moment everyone paused, looked down at the body-shaped dent. Someone coughed. Someone else said, "Well." Then everyone kept walking. Because that's how it goes. This isn't summer. This isn't a time for emotions. This is winter, and winter doesn't care about your cousin's weak constitution. If they fall and don't immediately declare they're fine, that's on them. Time is warmth. Warmth is life. And standing around yelling, "Are you okay?" just lets the frost in. To be fair, they didn't leave him forever. Just until the way back, because priorities. The cheese, or boot, or possibly turnip, needed to be acquired. And besides, he fell near a bush. That's practically shelter. You remember glancing over your shoulder as you trudged away. He was still there, face down, arms sprawled, a light dusting of snow already settling on his coat, like icing on a poorly baked disaster. Someone muttered, "He'll thaw eventually." Someone else replied, "If he's stiff when we get back, we'll just call the priest." You nodded. Because medieval logic says if they're not dead yet, they'll be fine. If they are dead, there's no rush. You did come back, of course, hours later, with cheese, or the boot, possibly still a turnip. And there he was, exactly where you left him. Only now, he was half buried. The snow had politely started the funeral. You poked him with a stick, no response. Then someone kicked him lightly in the ribs. He groaned. Success. You dragged him back. No dramatic rescue. No tears. Just two people pulling a mostly frozen relative through the slush like a sack of disappointing meat. He thawed by the fire. Slowly. Steam rising from his hair. One eye blinking. The pig licked his cheek for good measure. He didn't even seem upset. Just confused, kept saying, "Did we get the cheese?" You told him yes. It was easier than explaining that the neighbor gave you a boot because the cheese was moldy and full of mice. He nodded, coughed up a bit of snow, and went back to sleep. The next morning, he was fine. Mostly. Except for the left side of his face, which now permanently twitches when he sneezes. You call it snowstroke. He doesn't like that. But he also doesn't faint in the snow anymore. Because medieval winter teaches you fast. Fall once and it's an accident. Fall twice and it's your funeral. You're thirsty. Not a dramatic, dying in the desert kind of thirsty. Just the regular medieval kind, the one where your lips are cracked, your tongue is stiff, and your breath smells like smoked cabbage and old fear. So, naturally, you go for water. You reach for the bucket near the door. It's a wooden thing, half full of what used to be drinkable liquid. Now, it's a glacial relic. You chip away at it with a spoon, a dull one, because you don't trust the sharp ones near your cousin since the butter knife incident. After 5 minutes, you've shaved off enough ice to create a sad little pile of crystal shards in a cup. You wait. They do not melt, because of course the cup is also frozen. You take a sip anyway. It crunches. You nod like that's normal. Somewhere in the back of your mind you remember warm water. Not hot, don't be ridiculous, just warm, mild, comforting. You think you felt it once when you were 7 and someone spilled barley tea on your foot. Or maybe it was a fever dream. Honestly, it's hard to separate actual childhood from things that happened in the goat barn. You asked your mother about it once. She just stared at you like you asked if dragons were real. "Warm water," she said. "Why?" You didn't have an answer. You just remembered that once water didn't bite back. Baths. Also cold. Painfully so. You bathed like a squirrel escaping a drowning. Fast, twitchy, and full of regret. Last week your cousin tried to heat water using a hot stone. The stone cracked. The bucket exploded. He hasn't bathed since. You once heard that in the south they have water that flows from walls. You laughed so hard you coughed up lung frost. Water. From where? Walls. That sounds like witchcraft, or a hallucination caused by chewing moldy rye again. Instead, you've learned tricks. You keep your water cup near the fire. It still freezes, just slower. You stir it constantly. This does nothing, but it gives you purpose. You pretend it's wine. This also does nothing, but makes you feel rich. Sometimes you cup your hands around your breath, trying to trick yourself into warmth. It doesn't work. But for 2 seconds, you feel less abandoned by God. The dog drinks from the same bucket as you. Sometimes you both crunch ice together like sad synchronized snacks. You make eye contact. The dog looks away. He's ashamed. You are too. Warm water, you've decided, is just a legend, like kings who bathe twice a month, or bread without rocks, or spring. And if it ever did exist, you'll never know, because in this life, in this room, in this winter, water doesn't nurture, it judges. You wake up to silence. No pig snorting, no goat chewing on your pillow, no cousin coughing dramatically for attention, just the distant sound of wind howling through the roof and the gentle pressure of something heavy under you. You blink, shift, realize your arm is trapped beneath your own body, and then panic, because you can't feel it at all. You roll over, groaning, and flop onto your back. Your arm comes with you, like a sack of wet turnips, limp, uncooperative, dead. You lift it with your other hand and drop it. Thud. No reaction. You wiggle your fingers. Nothing. Just 5 pale icicles dangling from a soggy wool sleeve, looking like they've been excommunicated from your body. You slap it gently. Nope. Harder. Still nothing. You bite it. No response. You start to wonder if medieval sleep paralysis is just this, accidentally self-amputating overnight. You shuffle to the hearth, dragging your arm like it's luggage. Your mother looks at you, then at your dangling limb. "Oh, not again," she mutters. Apparently this happens. Apparently this happened last winter, and no one thought to mention that your body could just shut off limbs during sleep to save energy, like a peasant hibernation protocol. You try to remember what caused it. You'd fallen asleep curled around the pig again. She's warm, she's heavy. She snores rhythmically like a lullaby made of mud and comfort. And she rolled on your shoulder. Now your arm has been declared emotionally and physically unavailable. You prop it on the edge of the fire. It sags, like bread dough left too long. Your cousin offers to punch it back to life. You decline. He punches it anyway. You feel nothing. He says, "That's probably fine." The worst part, it's starting to feel soft. Not in a nice way. In a "this is the last thing you'll ever feel with this limb" kind of way. You imagine life one-armed, trying to churn butter with your weak hand, missing the chamber pot by inches, failing to slap your brother properly for stealing your rat stew. This is not sustainable. Finally, a twitch, your pinky. Like a mouse waking up from a coma, you scream in relief. Everyone else screams because you scream. The pig farts. Chaos. But it's happening. Your arm is waking up, and you immediately regret it. Because now come the needles. Thousands of tiny, vicious needles, stabbing their way from your shoulder to your wrist like they're trying to punish you for being alive. You bite your lip to keep from yelping. You fail. You yelp anyway. Your uncle throws a boot at you for the noise. You throw your numb arm back at him. It slaps him like a wet fish. Eventually, circulation returns, not fully, but enough to move, sort of. Your fingers curl again, badly, like they've forgotten their purpose. You flex. You cry. You whisper, "Never again." But you know that's a lie. Because tonight, you'll be cold. You'll curl up. And you'll forget. And the pig will roll. And you'll wake up, wondering if your body betrayed you all over again. It happened last night, somewhere between the first shiver and the 6th repositioning of your straw mat. You felt it. A sharp pinch, somewhere just above the ankle, fast, sneaky, like a guilty sneeze in church. You jolted, sat up, slapped at your leg, but it was dark. Too dark to see anything but the glowing eyes of the cat, the goose, and possibly your sister. She doesn't sleep, she lurks. You muttered, "Ow." The room didn't respond. because no one cares when you say ow in medieval winter unless it's followed by, and also, I'm on fire. You examined the spot with your fingers. No blood, no puncture you could feel, just a mild, slow-building itch that felt increasingly like a prophecy. This morning, the spot is angry, red, swollen, pulsing like it has thoughts. Your cousin suggests it's just a flea. Your mother says bedbugs, your brother says spider. The priest says sin. You're hoping for flea. Fleas are traditional, respectable, predictable. But this feels too powerful for flea. You try walking. Bad idea. Your leg feels like it's hosting a small rebellion. You can't tell if it's hot or cold because your foot is both. At the same time. You sit down, scratch it, then scratch it harder, then stop because it burns now, and also you may have uncovered something that shouldn't be purple. The room starts watching you, not overtly, but you catch them glancing. Your sister brings you broth just in case. Your cousin casually sharpens a stick while maintaining eye contact. Your mother mutters the Lord's Prayer. Twice, backwards. Someone asks how you're feeling. You say fine. Someone else whispers, that's what Uncle said before he turned green. You stop answering questions. By midday, you've developed a theory. You were bitten by something evil. Not evil like rat with a vendetta. Evil like a cursed insect that crawled out of a ghost, you tell your brother. He laughs, then moves 3 feet further away. The swelling is worse now. Your sock doesn't fit. You've started naming the pain. Gerald. Gerald is persistent, warm, and kind of a jerk. You tell Gerald to leave. He doesn't. You consider biting him back. By evening, your family has accepted one of 2 outcomes. You'll get better, or you'll become a cautionary tale. They're fine with either. Your cousin is already preparing your bite stick, a tradition where someone is bitten and then ceremonially gnaws on a stick to prove they're still alive tomorrow. If you die, the stick gets planted. If you live, the stick becomes your toothbrush. You wish that was a joke, it's not. The priest stops by, smells your leg. He nods solemnly. You have something. You say, do you know what it is? He says, no, but I've seen it before. Where? He pauses. Twice. Both times ended with a funeral and a goat having a seizure, comforting. So now, you wait. The fire crackles. The room watches. You itch. You ache. You stare into the void and try to make peace with your new identity. The possibly cursed, possibly infectious, definitely itchy one. You will either wake up tomorrow feeling fine, or with a third knee. And honestly, at this point you're okay with either, because in this house health isn't guaranteed, but at least the goose doesn't bite as hard. You're hungry. Not the kind of hungry where you dream of roast duck and fresh bread. That was 2 weeks ago. Now you dream of chewing on old boots and licking the wall, because today the only thing available for breakfast, lunch and disappointment was an onion. A single, shriveled, blackened onion, burnt to oblivion, found under a pile of firewood, possibly from last season. You ate it anyway. Because it was technically food, sort of. It still had onion-like qualities, sharp smell, roundish shape, and the ability to make you cry. Though this time it wasn't the fumes, it was the taste. Or rather, the emotional experience of eating something that had seen too much. The outside was ash, the inside was slime, the middle was crunchy. Not a satisfying crunch. A should this be crunching? Crunch. Like something had moved in during the off-season and laid eggs, but you didn't check. You were too tired, too cold, too far gone to argue with the only meal you'd had in 48 hours. You took a bite. Your teeth squeaked, your eyes watered, your stomach whimpered like a dog afraid of thunder. You chewed slowly, like you were negotiating with death itself. And then you swallowed. A burnt onion. A mystery crunch. And the last shred of your dignity. Regret came fast. It wasn't full-on nausea, just a quiet, creeping sense that your internal organs were planning a strike. Your belly made a sound that could only be described as medieval jazz. Your throat tightened. You had a flashback to that time you ate spoiled goat yogurt and hallucinated that the broom was a talking witch. Still, you kept going, because your cousin was watching, and you had to pretend it was edible so he wouldn't ask for half. He was already licking his lips. You growled. like a wolf protecting a trash sandwich. He backed off, respectfully. After you finished, you sat back, eyes wide, mouth numb, tongue unsure whether to thank you or leave your body. You felt something shift inside you, a new sensation, not food, not fullness. Just betrayal. Your body whispering, "That's what we're doing now, that's who we are." You sip water, also crunchy. You lie down. You curl up around your churning stomach and whisper apologies to it. You promise better things, turnips, maybe even gruel. Your stomach replies with a sound that rhymes with doom. And then the regret kicks in, hard, not from poisoning, not from illness, but from the memories. You remember stew. You remember crusty bread dipped in broth. You remember taste, and now you're a burnt onion survivor, scarred, ashy, and probably glowing faintly from the inside. But hey, at least your cousin didn't get any. And in this house, small victories are all that's on the menu. Really, you were just trying to warm your hands. They'd gone numb again after your nap on the floorboard seam. So you crouched near the fire, a little too close, a little too desperate. You didn't notice the goose sneak up behind you. You never do, because she walks like a whisper and hates you like a hobby. She brushed past your elbow just as you leaned forward, and then, whoosh, a soft poof followed by a crackle and a honk. A long, echoing, judgmental honk that sounded like a horn of war in a poultry apocalypse. You turned. You gasped. She was smoking. Not entirely aflame, just the tip of her tail feathers, glowing orange like the world's angriest candle. You reached out to help. She bit you, hard, twice, and then did what no one expected. She sat down, right in front of the fire, still lightly on fire, and stared at you like this is your problem now. Everyone in the room paused. No one spoke, because no one wants to interrupt a burning goose having what appears to be a moment of deep spiritual reflection. Your cousin whispered, "Is she enjoying it?" Your sister said, "She looks majestic." Your uncle cried, probably from smoke. Probably. Eventually your mother stood up, threw a rag over the goose, extinguished the flame. The goose didn't move, didn't honk, just gave you a look that said, "You will pay for this," and then wandered off like she hadn't just become a fire hazard with feathers. She's fine somehow, not even a blister. Just a few blackened feathers and an inflated sense of power. You tried to apologize. She bit you again. You offered her grain. She pecked it out of your hand, then pooped on your boot. You're now officially lower than soot in her eyes. The rest of the house won't let it go. Your brother calls you flamethrower. Your cousin walks by, flapping his arms and shouting, "Honk, honk, I'm a match." Even the pig seems nervous around you now. You've become the human torch of poultry trauma. That night the goose sleeps closer to the fire than usual. Unbothered, invincible, possibly plotting. You lie awake, nursing your peck wounds and wondering if next time she'll just walk into the flames on purpose. And somehow come out stronger. Because in this house you are cold, fragile and covered in shame. But the goose is a phoenix. It started so innocently. Your cousin tripped on the chamber pot. You weren't even watching, just minding your business, chewing on a stale crust, contemplating whether frostbite was a spiritual test or just bad plumbing. Then you heard the crash, followed by the squeal, followed by the squelch, and when you turned around, there he was, half covered in soot, one leg inside the pot, the other flailing like he was fighting an invisible eel. You laughed, hard. At first it felt good, a proper laugh, a belly-shaking, lung-clearing, soul-warming kind of laugh, the kind you haven't had since that time the goat sat on the priest. But this laugh had consequences. Mid-guffaw, your nose made a strange sound, a wheeze, a flutter, then a pop, and suddenly, the left side of your nose shut down. You stopped laughing, tried to sniff, nothing, tried again, still nothing. You leaned over, plugged the other nostril, and gave a forceful blow. All you got was a sad internal squeak, like a trapped mouse sighing in resignation. You went to the mirror. Well, not a real mirror, just a slightly polished pan full of soup residue and broken dreams. You stared at your face. It looked the same, just colder and confused. You pressed the side of your nose. It hissed. You cried a little. Then the other nostril tried to help by overcompensating. Now you're breathing entirely through your right nostril like some kind of nasal pirate. You tell your family. They laugh harder than you did. Your brother starts calling you half-air. Your sister offers to recalibrate your face with a slap. Your uncle recommends boiling sage in goat milk and snorting the steam. You try that. Now your throat burns and your eyes water, but the nostril is still shut. You've made it angrier. By evening, you're wheezing through one side like a haunted accordion. You try tilting your head, hanging upside down, even praying. Nothing. Your mother shrugs. She tells you about the time she sneezed so hard one winter, her eyes stopped working for 3 days. Just wait, she says. Eventually it'll unstick itself, or fall off. Either way you'll know. Sleep is a nightmare. You roll over and suffocate on your own face. You try mouth breathing, but the air is so cold it feels like drinking knives. You bury your head in straw. Bad idea. Now your one working nostril is full of hay, and your bad nostril is filing a lawsuit. You resign yourself to your fate. You will live out your days as a half-functional nose goblin, mocked by geese and ignored by God. But hey, at least your cousin never got out of that pot. And every time you see his soot-streaked leg poking skyward, you remember laughter is dangerous, joy is a gamble, and nostrils are fragile. You didn't mean to wear them this long, it just happened. 1 day became 2, 2 became 5, and now it's been 12 days. 12 long, damp, crusty, soul-draining days. And the socks? They've changed. They started as wool. Plain, respectable, a bit scratchy but warm. Now they're something else entirely. Somewhere between a second skin and a biological weapon. They've taken on a stiffness that defies logic. You could probably stand them in a corner and watch them salute the goat out of habit. You tried removing them once. Day 6. Bad idea. The air hit your foot and screamed. Your toes stuck together like forbidden lovers. The smell? Legend says it woke the dead in the cemetery 2 fields over. You heard a moan. You put the sock back on. By now the socks have memories. They've molded to your feet in ways that feel intimate and illegal. They creak when you walk. They sigh when you sit. One of them has a hole that resembles a screaming mouth. You've stopped looking directly at it. Your cousin asked if you were growing something in there. You laughed, then paused. Because honestly, maybe. There's warmth. There's movement. And last night you felt something pulse. You've developed a relationship with the socks, a toxic one. You resent them, they resent you. But you need each other. You tried wearing a spare pair. They were damp, colder, less emotionally present. You went back. The old socks welcomed you like a warm, spiteful ghost. They've also started giving you opinions, subtle ones. Every time you get too close to the fire, a sharp itch like disapproval. Try to leave the house without them. Sudden heel pain. You once insulted them aloud, and your foot immediately cramped for 6 hours. Coincidence? You don't think so. The rest of the house has noticed. They no longer sit near your feet. The pig snorts when you enter. Your mother leaves herbs by your bed without comment. The priest came by yesterday and simply muttered, "Ah, the sock face," before offering you a candle and a Bible page. Just one. You've considered burning them, but part of you is afraid they won't burn, that they'll just stand in the flames, unbothered. Watching you, judging, waiting for the moment you slip again, because in this house, you don't wear socks. The socks wear you. It wasn't a dramatic cry. No wailing. No sobbing into your straw pillow or collapsing dramatically against the pig. Just a moment. A quiet, stifled tear you didn't mean to let out. Triggered by something stupid. Maybe the last turnip rolled into the fire. Or your cousin told you spring was only 4 months away and laughed for 7 straight minutes. One tear. That's all it was. But in this house, in this air, with this kind of cold, even your emotions freeze on contact. You felt it run down your cheek like usual. Then stop halfway and stay there. You touched it later, absent-mindedly, as you were gnawing on stale bread, and realized the track was still there, dry, grainy, salty. You rubbed it with your sleeve, nothing. You licked your finger and scrubbed. Still there. You tried spitting on your hand and using it like a medieval exfoliator. All that did was make it worse. Now there's a slightly darker streak, like your face cried, and then aged in that one spot. Your brother noticed first. He pointed and said, "Hey, your cheek looks like it lost a bet." Your mother told you to stop being dramatic. Your cousin tried to sell it as a war scar. You told them it was just a tear. They all stared like you'd confessed to witchcraft. Now the streak has become part of your identity. You've named it. Reginald. Reginald the Salt Scar. He's stubborn, quiet, and a constant reminder that even sadness has consequences. You've tried everything. Rubbing lard on it, breathing on it for 20 minutes straight, pressing a warm stone to your face like a confused spa treatment. Nothing works. It just stares back at you from every soup-reflecting surface, mocking you, saying, "Yes, you cried, and I'm telling everyone." At night, it tingles, a tiny itch that only grows when ignored. You once tried scratching it with a twig. Bad idea. Now there's a twig scratch across the salt trail, and your sister says it looks like you lost a duel with your feelings. You wonder if this is permanent. A frozen emotional roadmap of your descent into cabbage madness. Maybe spring will fix it. Maybe not. Maybe your face is just haunted by regret now. You try to be brave, but every time you look at the pig, you swear she knows. She stares at you differently now. Not with pity, but with understanding. Because she's cried too. You saw her once when the goose ate her potato. So you and Reginald coexist. A boy and his tear stain, wandering the freezing corners of a house too old for warmth and too loud for peace. Waiting for the day when crying doesn't come with a facial tattoo of shame. You were just lying there, minding your own business, wrapped in 3 blankets, a damp cloak, a possibly cursed scarf, and your cousin's coat that smells like betrayal. Eyes closed, mouth slightly open, dreaming of something warm, probably imaginary stew, and then drip, right into your mouth. It wasn't water. You know that immediately. Water doesn't taste like this. This was thicker, stale, a little sour, and absolutely alive. You sat up, choking slightly. The ceiling stared back, silent, smug. You coughed into the fire. Everyone turned to look. Your brother asked, "Did the goose poop in your mouth again?" You shook your head, horrified. "No, roof." The room gasped. Someone crossed themselves. Someone else whispered, "It's happening again." You don't know what that means. You're too busy scraping your tongue with a spoon. You look up, there it is. The drip spot, a dark, saggy blemish in the thatch above your sleeping place. You swear it's grown teeth since last winter, and it always aims for your face. You shuffle your bedding 3 feet to the left. The drip follows. You move it right. So does the drip. This isn't a leak. This is a vendetta. You try to remember what's up there. Some rotting straw, some frozen animal droppings, a few of last season's mushrooms, and probably mold. Definitely mold. You can feel it in your teeth. That tingle? That buzzing in your ears? That's not hunger. That's fungal intrusion. You ask your cousin to look in your mouth, he says no. You ask your sister if mold can grow in people. She says only if God lets it. You stare at the goose and wonder if she's ever eaten roof drip. She stares back and bites the log. You take that as a yes. The taste won't go away. You've tried. Gargling with vinegar, eating raw onion as distraction flavor, shoving snow in your mouth and pretending it's holy water, nothing helps. If anything, it's evolving. Now there's a texture memory. You chew your bread and suddenly it feels like sealing. You cry a little. Reginald the Salt Streak does not react. That night you wear a pot on your head to bed. It seems like a good idea, until condensation builds and drips into your ear. Now you can't hear out of one side. But at least your mouth is dry, progress. You fall asleep dreaming of modern things, roofs that don't leak, homes with ceilings, faucets, tetanus shots, hope. You wake up, another drip right into your eye. Of course, because in this house the roof doesn't leak. It chooses. It began with optimism, a rare and dangerous emotion in this house. Your cousin, yes, that cousin, decided today was the day he'd contribute. He stood up mid-morning, cracked his back like a knight about to slay a dragon, and announced, "I'm going to cook something warm for everyone." The room froze. You choked slightly on your lukewarm gruel shard. Even the goose tilted her head like, "Excuse me? Your cousin has many talents. Cooking is not one of them. He once boiled turnips until they dissolved into paste and vengeance. He once tried to bake bread and produced something archaeologists later classified as a blunt weapon. And now, he's holding a bulb of garlic like it's a sacred relic. Garlic warms the blood, he says. Garlic cures infections, says your mother, nodding solemnly. Garlic makes the demons flee, says the priest, who's just wandered in for warmth. You don't know what garlic does, but you do know this. It should not be dropped directly into fire. That's exactly what happens. Your cousin unwraps the garlic, raises it above the flame like he's summoning the sun, and tosses it straight into the hearth. Sizzle. Pop. F-womb. Within seconds, the room transforms. A thick smoky fog rises from the fireplace. It smells like someone tried to cook a ghost. Your eyes burn. Your mouth dries. The goose honks once and immediately exits through a hole in the wall. The smell spreads fast, pungent, greasy, unforgiving. Not the rich, savory aroma of roasted garlic. No, this is the smell of accidental potion making. A dark spell no one understands. Everyone reacts differently. Your uncle starts crying. Your sister gags and claims her tongue has gone numb. The priest stands by the door, fanning himself with a moldy hymn book. You try to cover your face with your cloak, but the smell clings. It's in the walls, in the floor, in your soul. The cousin shrugs and says, "It just needs to air out," then throws in another bulb. Why? Now the room smells like a vampire funeral inside a burnt onion. Your brother says his dreams are haunted. You haven't even slept yet. You just sit there, eyes watering, wondering how this became your life. You crawl outside, breathe cold, bitter air like it's a luxury. The pig is already out there too, snorting at the frost in solidarity. Even Reginald, the salt streak on your face, seems to wince. Eventually the smoke clears. The cousin returns to the room with a smile. Smells better, doesn't it? No one answers. Because you all know the truth. The smell has won. That night, your dreams taste like garlic. You wake up convinced your teeth are sweating. You spit, it's spicy, you cry again. And yet, no one stops him. Because in this house, even failure counts as initiative. And if someone's willing to burn garlic until the furniture cries, well, that's the closest thing you've got to a family meal. It was a crime of opportunity. Not malice, not greed, just desperation. It was freezing, your cloak was damp, your socks were sentient, and your blanket, thin enough to read scripture through. You spotted it during the evening shuffle, your brother's blanket. Thick, soft, mysteriously unburned. He was off doing something dumb, probably chasing the goose or trying to lasso smoke out of the chimney again. And there it was, folded, unattended, smelling faintly of hay and betrayal. You didn't even hesitate. You snatched it, slipped it over yourself like a stolen royal mantle. Your bones sighed, your toes uncurled, your skin whispered, "Thank you." It was the warmest you'd been in weeks. But warmth has a price, because an hour later, your brother returned, blanketless, confused, and with a look in his eyes that said, "I've been betrayed before, but never like this." He sniffed the air, paused, turned slowly toward you. You pretended to sleep, harder than you've ever pretended anything in your life, breathing steady, mouth slightly open. One leg twitching, because that's what dreams do, right? He stood over you, watching, waiting, plotting. He didn't say a word. He just walked away, backed into the shadows like a medieval Batman. That's worse. Now it's psychological warfare. Since then, you sleep with one eye open. Literally, your right eyelid refuses to close anymore. It's learned to stand guard. Because any moment now, you know it's coming. Revenge. In sock form, in rat form, in some form you won't see until it's too late. You tried giving the blanket back the next morning. Too late. He already knows. He's feeding your portion of gruel to the pig now. He swapped your dry straw for the damp stuff. He told the priest you've been making deals with the cold spirits. You saw him sharpening a spoon. You don't even ask why. The blanket still rests over you. But it no longer comforts. It feels accusatory. It holds warmth and guilt in equal measure. You tried returning it quietly. He took it back without speaking. Just smiled, too wide, too patient. Now every time you pass him, he says things like, "Sleep well? Enjoy your dreams while you can. I hope nothing unexpected happens tonight." You nod, smile, laugh nervously. Then spend the next 12 hours lying flat, clutching a wooden spoon like a weapon, and waiting for the sound of socks being loaded with pebbles. Because in this house you don't borrow, you steal warmth, and in return you inherit fear. At first you thought you were hallucinating. Maybe it was the hunger. Maybe it was the garlic fog still lingering in your brainstem. But you woke in the middle of the night to a strange crunching sound, rhythmic, purposeful, like someone gently sanding wood. You turned your head, and there it was. A rat. Not just any rat. A rat wearing bread. It wasn't random. It wasn't accidental. This rat had intentionally jammed a dry crust onto its head, perfectly shaped like a helmet. One ear poked through a hole, the other was tucked with surgical precision. He stood tall, unbothered, prepared. You locked eyes. He didn't flinch, he just stared, like a general surveying the battlefield. You watched in frozen horror as he turned slowly, deliberately, and scurried behind the firewood, still wearing the bread, still in charge. You sat up. Was that? No. You blinked hard, whispered, "Did you see that?" to the sleeping pig. She farted softly in reply. You took that as a yes. The next day you tried to tell your family. Your sister laughed. Your brother accused you of licking soot again. The priest just muttered, "Revelation 6, and refused to elaborate. But you knew what you saw. You knew what it meant. They're planning something. That wasn't just a hungry rat, that was a leader. And he's not alone. You've started noticing signs, chewed bits of parchment arranged like maps, tiny boot prints in the flower bin. Your sock, missing, then returned cleaner than before. You were being watched. Studied, scouted. You've tried reasoning with them, left out cheese as a peace offering. It was taken, replaced with a pebble. A warning, a token, a rat-sized currency exchange. You don't know, but you don't like it. You spotted another one this morning. Different rat, smaller, but dragging a piece of straw like a weapon, wearing half a walnut shell on its back. Armor. The rats are armoring up. And your family still won't believe you, even as you whisper, "They're coming," every time you hear a squeak. Even as you sleep with a wooden spoon tucked under your shirt like a dagger. Even as you carve "Rat War Incoming" into the side of the firewood. They just laugh. But tonight? Tonight, you saw Bread Helmet again, on a windowsill, looking in, judging, measuring. And this time he had followers, 5 of them, all armored, all silent, all terrifying. Because in this house, winter is cruel. But organized bread-wearing rats? They're worse, and they're ready. You wake up. Maybe it's hard to tell. Because your eyes are frozen shut again, your lashes have fused together with the precision of nature's cruelest glue. You try to blink. They crinkle, crinkle. That's not a normal eye sound. You reach up to peel them open, one finger at a time, and finally, your right eye cracks loose like an ancient door hinge. You look around. Same darkness, same pile of sleeping bodies. Same angry goose snoring near the hearth like she pays rent. You sit up, stretch, then freeze. Because suddenly it hits you. You don't know what day it is, at all. Not even a hint. Not Tuesday-ish. Not the day after turnip soup disaster. Nothing. You whisper to your sister, "Hey, what day is it?" She stares at you, chewing bark. Says, "I think it's goat day." There is no goat day. You panic slightly. You try to remember. When was the last time the sun came through the window? When did someone mark the charcoal on the wall? When was the last time you felt anything? The only reliable event lately was when the roof dripped into your mouth, and that could have been yesterday or during the last harvest. You stumble to the door, open it. Outside is just white, sky white, ground white, air white. Time doesn't pass here. It just piles up in flakes and forgets to melt. You look back inside. The fire is somehow still burning, but no one remembers lighting it. Your cousin is building a hat from spoons. Your uncle is brushing his teeth with a twig and prayer. And your mother is stirring the soup cauldron even though there's no soup. You find the old calendar on the wall, the one made of sheep gut and regret. It's blank. Someone scratched out the dates and wrote cold across all the squares. in large, angry letters. You try asking the priest. He just sighs and says, "The concept of linear time is a luxury of the warm." You nod like that means something, but deep down you know what he means. It's always now, and it's always winter. You try marking the wall yourself, just to feel grounded. You draw a sun. It looks like a terrified potato. You cry a little. Your eyelashes immediately refreeze. Eventually you accept it. You are no longer a person who lives in days. You are a creature of moments. The moment the fire pops. The moment your sock peels itself off. The moment you think you hear birds, but it's just your brother coughing rhythmically. And somehow that becomes enough. Because in this house, time is just frost with opinions, and your face is a living sundial of suffering. It wasn't supposed to be funny. Your brother slipped on a beat, that's all, but something about the angle, how high he flew, how slow he fell, sent a ripple through your soul. And before you could stop it, you laughed. A real one, from the chest. A bold, foolish, full-teeth laugh, and then snap, pain, sharp, immediate. Like a whip cracked across your face. You froze mid-laugh. The sound caught in your throat. You reached up instinctively, felt it. A split, a canyon, right in the middle of your bottom lip. You touched it. It hissed. You recoiled. It pulsed. You exhaled through your nose, afraid to even part your lips again. The fire crackled mockingly. You're not sure, but you think the goose smiled. You rushed to the reflective pan, tilted it toward the light. And there it was, a red, angry crevasse, like someone had axed your mouth open. You pulled the skin gently. It gaped wider. You gasped. Mistake. The cold air hit the wound like a betrayal. You blacked out for 3 seconds. You staggered back to the fire, your hands cupped over your mouth like you'd just eaten shame. Your cousin offered you some soup. You whispered, "I can't." The soup was hot. Too hot. And your lip was too open. You tried a piece of bread. The crust caught the edge. You made a noise that scared the rat in armor. Even he backed away. You asked the priest for help. He squinted at your face and said, "That's a sin wound. Pride and mirth. Let it teach you." Then gave you a candle stub and walked away. "Thanks, holy man, your mother suggested pig fat. She always suggests pig fat. You tried it. Now your lip is greasy and still broken. The only thing that's healed is your desire to ever smile again. You can't even talk properly. Every syllable risks a flare-up. You've started mumbling like a cursed hermit. Your family keeps asking if you've taken a vow of silence. You nod. Because yes, you have. A vow of lip preservation. Even sleep is a danger. You drooled once. The salt touched the crack. You woke up screaming. Your brother told everyone you were having emotion dreams. Now they think you're soft. You let them. Better that than admitting your own face betrayed you in joy. By day 4, the lip starts to harden, crust over. But if you so much as smirk at a fart joke, it twinges. And that's the worst part. The fear. Of smiling. Of feeling warmth. Of letting your mouth be happy ever again. Because in this house, laughter is a liability. And lips are just soft little fault lines waiting to split under pressure. It started slow. A tingle here, a numb patch there, the kind of cold that feels temporary. You wiggled your foot once, early in the week, and thought, that's probably fine. Now, nothing, not a twitch, not a tickle. Your toes are gone. Not physically. They're still technically attached to you, somewhere in the depths of your sock, which at this point is more emotional support than garment. But functionally, they've left the building. You poked one yesterday with a burnt stick, no response. You whispered to them gently, nothing. You even told them a joke, not even a pity twitch. They were good toes once, reliable, present. They helped you steal apples, kick rocks, and step directly into cow dung. They deserved better. Now they're like childhood friends who moved away and never wrote back. You try everything. You soak them in warm broth until your sister screamed about wasting dinner. You breathe hot air into your sock hole like it's a foot-based CPR. You even rub them with a turnip out of desperation. Still nothing. Just silence. You begin to suspect they've entered a cold coma, a deep, toe-based slumber where they dream of summer, of grass, of wiggling freely in the mud without consequence. You envy them, you confide in your cousin. I haven't felt my toes. He shrugs and says, maybe they're evolving. You blink. He continues, maybe you're becoming more hoof than human. You cry a little. Your lip splits again. You hobble around the house like a cursed pirate. The pig avoids your foot because it doesn't recognize you anymore. Even the rat general looks at your gait with concern. That night you sit by the fire, staring into it like a lost widow. You whisper, I miss you. Your sister says, who are you talking to? You whisper, don't worry about it. Because how do you explain that your heart is broken over a lack of toe sensation? Eventually you accept your new reality, toeless, emotionally adrift. You begin sketching what you think they look like in the soot beside the hearth. Rounded, noble. The second one slightly longer than the big one. You sigh. You're not crying. There's just smoke in your eye. But then, one night, while shifting in your sleep, you feel it. A pulse, a spark, the faintest flutter, like a dying moth under wet fabric. You gasp. Could it be? You wiggle, twitch. A toe just twitched. You scream in joy. You wake the goose. She bites your ankle. You feel that. You cry again. Because in this house, hope comes in the form of a single half-alive toe. And honestly, that's enough to keep going. It was supposed to be a small act of dignity, just a few strokes, a little tug, a little tame. Nothing fancy, no braids, no buns, not even symmetry. You weren't trying to look attractive. You just didn't want to feel like an abandoned scarecrow. The comb had been passed down from your aunt, who probably stole it from a bishop. It was old, wooden, and slightly bent, like everything else in your life. But it still worked. Until today. You sat by the fire, knees up, blanket over your shoulders like a sad wizard. You pulled the comb from its hiding place beneath the mattress, inside a sock behind the wall crack. You smiled, just once, and began. The first tug? Normal. Snagged on something round and possibly alive, but you powered through. The second? Rougher. You heard a crunch. Could have been lice. Could have been frost. Could have been God saying, don't bother. By the third stroke, it felt like dragging a rake through a haunted haystack. Your hair is dry, damp, oily, and brittle all at once. A paradox of textures. It creaked. Hair shouldn't creak. And then it happened. Crack. The sound echoed, sharp, final, like a femur snapping during a cartwheel. The comb split right down the middle. One half stayed in your hand. The other embedded itself in the nest of matted curls, never to be seen again. Silence. You stared at the broken piece in your palm, then at your reflection in the soot pan, then back at your palm. A single flake of dandruff drifted past your nose like a tragic snowflake. Your brother laughed. You threw the comb piece at him. It bounced off his forehead and shattered further. Now it's just toothpicks with an inferiority complex. You tried pulling the other half out of your hair. It resisted, then disappeared deeper into the wilderness on your scalp. You are now part comb. You've become a hybrid being. Half peasant, half failed grooming attempt. You try braiding the mess into something manageable. The braid refuses. You try cutting it. The scissors get stuck. You try shaving it. The goose attacks you. Now you have a bald patch shaped like Italy. The priest walks by and gently pats your head. Says, vanity is a gateway to frostbite. You want to yell. Instead, your lip cracks again. So you nod. Quietly. Later that night, your cousin offers to comb it out for you. He returns with a fork and a bottle of grease. You decline. With force. Because in this house, hair isn't style. It's a survival hazard. And combs, they're single-use weapons in a war you can't win. It started with a smell. Not good, not bad, just different. Which in this house meant interesting. You followed it like a starving hound. Past the fireplace. Past the bed where someone was sobbing softly into a sock. Past the wall where the rat general had drawn a tactical map in soot. And there it was. Tucked between two firewood logs like a secret gift from the mold gods. Cheese. Or at least something that used to be cheese before the concept of refrigeration was invented. It was small, hard, dusty, greenish, and emitting a faint glow you chose not to acknowledge. You didn't ask questions. You didn't call the family meeting. You didn't sniff or prod or test for sentience, you just ate it, because it was cheese, and cheese in this house is holy. The first bite, soft, then hard, then inexplicably wet. You ignored the tingling sensation. You told yourself that meant it was working. You swallowed, and that's when it happened. A wink, not metaphorical, not poetic, literal. The remaining chunk in your hand winked at you. A slow, oily flutter. You dropped it instantly. It bounced once, let out a sound that can only be described as disappointed, and rolled into the shadows. You stood there motionless, mouthful soul empty, tongue vibrating. Was this a test? A hallucination? A prank from the cheese itself? You looked down at your stomach like it might blink back. It didn't. Yet. The goose wandered by, sniffed your breath, and passed out. The rat general, perched on a wooden spoon, saluted you. Your cousin offered you a crust of bread to mop up the dairy madness. You declined. You didn't want anything to interfere with the experience. 10 minutes later, you began to see sounds. The fire crackled in iambic pentameter. Your fingers itched like they wanted to grow roots. You made eye contact with the family pig, and for one glorious moment understood her. She was weeping internally. Your family started to notice. You were giggling too evenly. Your neck was turning slightly green, and your shadow was dancing on its own. The priest asked if you'd been dabbling in the devil's brie. You nodded solemnly and said, "He was delicious." Eventually, the episode passed. You fell asleep in the corner, humming a lullaby you don't remember knowing. Woke up with your mouth glued shut by dairy regret. The cheese was gone. No one would admit to moving it. You suspect it left on its own. You've sworn off dairy unless it looks cleaner, or less animated, or at least doesn't wink, because in this house, even cheese has an agenda, and survival is just a question of how much mold you're willing to ignore. You used to know what silence was. Birdsong at dawn, snowfall in the woods, that calm, heavy hush just before someone farted in church. But now, you live in a permanent orchestra of bodily misery. It's not just the cold. It's the sounds the cold unlocks in people. Sounds you didn't know existed. Sounds that should require a license, and none of it ever stops. Take your cousin, for example. He coughs. Constantly. Not a normal, polite cough. His is a phlegmy, theatrical masterpiece, performed at full volume from the deepest pits of his lungs every 30 seconds. Like clockwork. You've started timing it. Last night it reached a new personal best. 38 coughs between midnight and despair. Then there's your sister. She chews like she's trying to fight the food with her mouth. She doesn't just chew. She mauls. Every bite sounds like a horse stepping on dry parchment. You once watched her eat a carrot so loudly, the priest dropped his candle. You've considered feeding her soup just to spare the air, and don't get started on your uncle. He weeps. Openly. Every night. Into the fire. No one knows why. He won't say. He just sobs, softly but with intention, like a man mourning the ghost of a slightly warmer January. At first it was annoying, now it's just the soundtrack of your life. Cough, chomp, sob, snort, whimper, repeat. With the occasional creak of your brother's knees and the shriek of the goose having emotional issues. You tried plugging your ears once, stuffed them with straw and wax, could still hear it. The sounds seeped through your skull like medieval Bluetooth. Your brain twitched in Morse code. You went outside to escape. Big mistake. Now it's the wind whining, begging, whispering words that sound suspiciously like, "Give up." Even the snow crunches like it has commentary. You tried hiding under the pig. She's warm, but she snores like thunder wrapped in bacon, and farts on the hour. You left with ringing ears and a new personality. The priest told you to pray for inner stillness. You tried. But someone in the room always breaks the silence with a cough-laugh-sneeze combo that makes the dog bark, which makes the baby cry, which makes the fire hiccup. You gave up. Now you hum to yourself. It helps drown out the chorus of communal suffering. But deep down you wonder, did silence ever exist? Or was it always a myth, like full bellies or functional boots? Because in this house, peace is just the brief moment between two wheezes, and even that feels suspicious. It began innocently enough. One morning you woke up to find the goose sitting in the back corner, not pecking, not honking, just sitting, silent, watching, radiating the kind of energy you'd expect from a retired gladiator turned monk. Someone said, "Oh, she's nesting." Someone else said, "She's probably just warm." But you saw the truth. That wasn't nesting. That was occupation. At first, people still passed through the corner. It was where the bucket was kept, and the spoon pile, and the family's only reasonably dry sock. But the moment someone got too close, hiss. Not just a normal hiss, a low, guttural, warning hiss that vibrated through the floorboards and up into your sinuses. The kind of hiss that says, "I know your weaknesses. Try me." So people stopped going near. Your brother tried to retrieve a ladle. She lunged, snapped the air in front of his face. He screamed, dropped the ladle, ran into the doorframe. Now he twitches every time someone says the word corner. Your cousin tried tossing a crumb toward the bucket. The goose didn't move, didn't blink, but the crumb stopped midair, fell and turned to dust. You're 90% sure she did that with her mind. The priest said, "Perhaps she's been chosen by the Lord." You said, "Perhaps she's possessed." He nodded thoughtfully, left a candle near her. She ate it. Now that corner is hers, fully, permanently, a territory unto itself. The rest of the house now leans slightly to the left, because no one wants to go near her side. Your uncle suggested goose diplomacy, approached her slowly, hands up, voice calm. The moment he bent his knee, she slapped him with her wing, twice, then turned away like he wasn't even worth the beak. There's now a goose map on the wall, drawn in charcoal. One big circle labeled her zone, several no-go arrows pointing outward, and a scribbled note that reads, "Do not make eye contact." She doesn't leave the corner anymore, but every now and then she shifts, slowly, deliberately, as if reminding you that she could, that she chooses not to. For now, you've started offering tribute, bits of bread, shiny rocks, a spoon with a smile carved in it. She accepts them, or doesn't. Either way, you bow. The children whisper legends about her now. They think she used to be a person, or maybe a duchess cursed for being too powerful. You don't argue, because in this house, that goose owns real estate, and you're just a cold, shivering tenant in her growing empire. You don't remember when it started. One day your grandfather just shuffled up to the fire, sat on his three-legged stool, stared into the flames like they owed him money, and said, "Back in the blizzard of 48. And from that moment on, you've never known peace again. At first, you thought it was interesting, historic even, a tale of survival, of grit, of true cold. You leaned in, listened closely, tried to absorb the ancestral wisdom from his frostbitten tales, but something felt off. 48, he kept saying. No one could agree on which. 48, 1348, 1448, 2048. He never clarified. And when asked, he'd just say, "Doesn't matter. The snow was sideways and the goats froze mid-chew." The details shifted every time. Sometimes the goats were upside down. Sometimes the blizzard lasted 8 weeks. Other times 8 minutes, but time was slower back then. Once he claimed a snowflake cut through a barn door. Like a knife through custard. You tried to correct him. He growled. No one dares interrupt anymore. He starts talking. Everyone goes silent. Not out of respect. Out of fear that it will reset the story. You interrupt during the butter churning part. Boom. Back to the start. He tells it at least twice a day. Every day. Same pacing. Same pauses. Same dramatic stare at the ceiling beams, like he's expecting icicles to drip out of them. Your brother started documenting it in charcoal on the wall, just to see how many variations exist. Current tally, 19 different versions. In one, he lost 3 fingers. In another, he claims to have defeated the snow with mind control. In yet another, he rode a frozen sheep like a toboggan of doom. Someone asked the priest if 1348 even had a notable blizzard. The priest responded with, "The Lord works in mysterious snowfall," which was not helpful. Last night, he said the blizzard of 48 ended when he sneezed so hard. The clouds parted and the sun apologized. You clapped, not out of belief, out of survival instinct. You once whispered to your cousin, "I think he's just cold and confused." Grandfather turned his head from across the room. He wasn't even facing you. He said, "That's what they said in the cave, right before the snow wolves came." You haven't spoken since. The truth is, no one knows what's real anymore. Maybe there was a blizzard of 48. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe he is the blizzard. All you know is, when he clears his throat and leans toward the fire, you brace for impact. Because in this house, history isn't written in books. It's told in endless loops by frostbitten grandfathers with suspiciously vivid imaginations and no concept of time. It started as a one-sided conversation, a mutter here, a sigh there, a casual ooh into the rising grey mist above the hearth. But the smoke responded. Not in words, of course, but in swirls, in shapes, in slow dramatic curls that felt, somehow, personal. You'd say, "This soup tastes like regret." The smoke would twist upward, forming a question mark. You'd blink, frown. I said what I said. The smoke would puff once, sharply, disapproving. You were hooked. Over time, the smoke became your confidant. You told it everything. Your theories about the rat militia, your hatred for wet wool, your secret crush on the neighbor who only has one eyebrow but a very confident stride. The smoke never laughed, never gasped, just danced, softly, like a bored wizard's sleeve. Your family started noticing. They'd hear you muttering by the fire, pacing, gesturing, debating. "Who are you talking to?" your sister asked. You pointed at the ceiling. She looked, saw nothing. You whispered, "You're not ready." The priest caught you arguing once. You were standing nose to air with the chimney haze, saying things like, "I don't need validation, just clarity." And, "No, you're the one who doesn't understand cheese politics." He asked if you needed prayer. You said, "The smoke and I are working through it." He backed away, crossed himself twice, left you alone. You've started naming the smoke shapes. There's Judgy Curl and Wiggleman, and your favorite, the Wisp of Truth. Sometimes they appear when you're upset, sometimes when you're happy, sometimes when your toe falls off in your sock and you scream. The smoke listens. And then there's the eye. You don't talk when the eye shows up. It forms in the corner of the chimney. Perfect circle, stares at you, unblinking, unmoving, just watching, like it knows what you did with that stolen honey. You nod at the eye. It nods back. You think. One night, you and the smoke had a real fight. You accused it of being passive-aggressive. It replied with a skull-shaped swirl and a puff of ash in your face. You stormed off, slept by the goose, woke up with a wing print on your cheek and a new respect for your smoky friend. You made up the next day, offered it a pine cone. It accepted, you think, because in this house no one listens. Everyone judges except the smoke. The smoke gets it. The smoke understands. And the smoke never repeats what you say unless it's whispering it to the rats. At some point your body gave up. You don't remember exactly when. Maybe it was the night you layered 4 tunics, a curtain and a rug, and still shivered like a haunted tambourine. Or maybe it was when your breath froze mid-air and fell back into your lap like a disappointed ghost. Either way, the dream of warmth, dead. You used to fight it, clutching your knees, crawling closer to the fire. Sitting on the fire once, that was a learning moment. But now you've moved on. You're no longer fighting the drafts. You're collecting them. Each gust of icy wind that slips through the cracks in the wall now has a name. There's left shiver, the breeze that sneaks in near the goat's bucket and hits your ankle every morning. There's window whistler, a moody, high-pitched wraith that flutters past your right ear every midnight. And your favorite, Susan, a strangely warmish draft that smells like burnt beet and makes your hair stand up. No one else can feel Susan. You've stopped telling people about her. They wouldn't understand. You've become a connoisseur, a collector. Each gust, puff, swirl and creep catalogued in your brain like fine wines. Ah yes, a 1346 northeastern draft with notes of mildew and old shoe. This one has a sharp entry, lingers behind the knee, and finishes with a rattle in the bones. You even started making a map. A detailed parchment diagram of the house annotated with arrows and little faces to indicate draft personality. Your brother found it and asked if you were okay. You said, "Better than you who keeps losing his drafts to the goose corner." He didn't respond. Because you were right. You've built a little draft station. Just a stool and a tattered cloak near your favorite floorboard crack. You sit there for hours, sipping boiled water, muttering things like, "Ah, here comes left shiver, right on time." And the others. They've stopped questioning it. Some even ask your advice. "Where's the warmest spot?" You cackle. "There is no warmest spot." They nod solemnly. As they should. You are the draft whisperer, the cold cartographer, the frost sommelier. And you have found purpose in the purposeless, because in this house warmth is a myth. But patterns are power. And if you can't beat the cold, you might as well befriend it. If you've made it this far, first of all, well done. You've survived frostbite lips, frozen soup, aggressive poultry, and the psychological collapse of talking to chimney smoke. You're not warm, you're not dry, but you're still here. That's more than most medieval peasants could say. So now, blow out your tallow candle, roll over onto the itchy side of the straw mattress, and ignore the goose watching you sleep. She's earned it. Because the fire's out, your toes are gone. And tomorrow brings another day of coughs, soup, and suspicious cheese. But for now, rest easy. You've made it through another cold medieval night. And you only hallucinated a little. Good night, traveler, and may your drafts be gentle.